Well, hello, and welcome to this very unusual stream of VTuber Talk. Oh, that's what I forgot. I forgot to make sure that the chat box is still visible. That should go up here. Let's see here. Should go around there, so that'll be perfect. There we go. Hello, Vanille. This is your fault, by which I mean parentheses. Thank you very much for giving me something of interest to read. I was having so much difficulty thinking of something to actually do for this stream. So, yay. I have no idea what I'm about to read. I've skimmed a couple of these sermons and just glanced at them and been like, yep, that sure does sound like lore of something. This will be the 37? Because there's 37, there's the secret 37. Lessons of Vivec, Sermons of Vivec, they have both. But Vanille was indeed the one who initially suggested this to me way back during the 4th anniversary charity marathon. And here we are on broadcast date of November 25th. The charity marathon was in January. I've been dragging my feet on this. I was very good about getting several of the other charity reward streams done in the first couple of months. I got the Sonic Adventure 2 stream done. I got, what was the other one? Oh, there was the Monty Python script reading stream with Lane and Nemo, and the Monster Hunter Wilds stream with Ren, and had a great time with all those. And I'd sort of been just kicking this one down the road, and then as the first couple of months of the year passed, things got very hectic for me. And then I thought I was going to do this around September, and then September got very hectic for me. And then I realized in the past couple weeks, oh, I'm running out of time in the year. One of the big things that I make sure to do is that I complete all charity marathon rewards, obviously, before the next charity marathon. I would have a problem with it myself personally if I started a charity marathon with something from the previous one unfulfilled. So I have basically 2 months to get the last ones, and I think this was the last actual stream that needed to be done. I haven't been like kicking over half of them or anything down the line. There's just a few scraps to pick up and collect and finish up. So I'm actually not doing that badly, but this was really that big one on the list of, yeah, Jay, you gotta get off your butt and just read some ASMR. You gotta do some whispers one night. And I realized, well, kind of on short notice, I'm still gonna be pretty busy throughout the end of the year. And I had been meaning to do this in the past couple of weeks, and then stuff came up in those weeks. And I saw today, or like yesterday, I don't have anything on Tuesday, do I? And it was like, okay, I guess we're doing it now. So I posted this on social media about 2 hours before I went live. So thank you to anyone who shows up. Vanille, I do appreciate you tuning in, lurking a little bit. I hope you enjoy it at the very least, because, I do these for fun. I do anticipate that I will enjoy this, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to know that at least one other person is getting some joy out of this. And I know that you are obviously a big Morrowind fan, and that when I had just sort of floated during the anniversary charity marathon, all right, we've gotten to the threshold goal for the ASMR stream. Does anybody have any ideas? You suggested this one pretty quickly. It was just like, oh, you should do the 36 Lessons of Vivec. I was like, no idea what that is, but hey, 36 sounds like enough to make a proper stream out of, and the length of these actually does feel very good. That I anticipate this will take maybe a little more or less than 2 hours or so. That it's not a giant, massive book that I'm not going to be able to complete in one stream. It's not something that I'm going to be doing for 30 minutes and then be like, well, guess we're all out of stuff to do. And so really good call here. So, and hello, Rusty Robot Factory. I'm going to also read Vanille's very kindly provided primer on Elder Scrolls lore so that the sermons make sense for anyone like me who might not know the lore. The world of Elder Scrolls was created by one god, Lorkhan, tricking the others into giving up their power to create the mortal plane, Nirn. The gods who gave up their power to make the world are known as the Aedra. By the way, please feel free to call me out on any mispronunciations as I make them. I'm going to guess that it is Aedra, A-E-D-R-A, our ancestors. And the ones who abstained or didn't participate are the Daedra, not our ancestors. The Aedra, having used their power, were angry and killed the trickster god Lorkhan and destroyed his body. The center of Morrowind, the Red Mountain, is the place where his heart fell. The Dwemer, or dwarves, and the Chimer, the Dark Elf predecessors, were living in Morrowind and fighting many thousands of years later. In order to create the ultimate weapon, the Dwemer made artifacts to harness the power of the fallen god's heart. Chimer saw this as blasphemy and sought to stop them. The leaders were Vivec, Almalexia, Sothasil, the Tribunal, Nevar, the Chosen One, and Dagoth-Ur. During this battle, the Dwemer all disappeared from Nirn, leaving behind the heart and the artifacts. It is unknown what happened exactly, whether the Tribunal killed Nerevar, the branded Dagoth-Ur a traitor, or if Dagoth-Ur killed Nevar in pursuit of power. But at the end of the day, the Tribunal and Dagoth-Ur were able to approach the heart of Lorkhan and become, quote-unquote, gods. They got godlike power and immortality, but they were born mortals, so they are often referred to as false gods by the Daedra and opposers. The Tribunal made away with the artifacts, but Dagoth-Ur maintained control of the heart of Lorkhan. Daedra may not have made the planet, but they still like to meddle in the affairs of it. The Dunmer, Dark Elves, regard one or more of these gods as their patron. The main one in this story of Morrowind being Azura, the god of dawn and dusk. The Daedra are offended by the arrogance of the Tribunal and how they abuse the fallen god's powers to become gods themselves, so Azura curses all the Chimer to become Dark Elves, their golden skin now an ashy gray. The only exceptions being Almalexia, pure Chimer, she is all gold, and Vivec, who is half gold, half ash. Important names and locations: Morrowind, the country where this happens; Vardenfell, an island where Red Mountain lies, and these stories take place; Vivec, the warrior poet, one god in the Tribunal; Chim, enlightenment, C-H-I-M. To achieve Chim is to understand the meta-context that Elder Scrolls is a game. You are fake and therefore have the power to do anything. You essentially become a god because you understand the simulation and how it works. Almsivi, an alternate name for the Tribunal. Azura, Mephala, Marunis Dagon, and Boethia, all Daedric gods. Whew. Well, this is going to be a time. So, let's see how this all goes. And I've found a nice, I'm not sure if this is a physical print that was done or just a PDF, but it was a very nice and legible one for these 36 lessons of Vivec. So, let's get started then. The 36 Lessons of Vivec. Sermon 1 by Vivec. He was born in the ash among the Velothi, a non-Chimer, before the war with the northern men. Iam came first to the village of the Nechiman. Nechiman? This is going to get very difficult very quickly, isn't it? And her shadow was that of Boethia, who was the prince of plots, and the things unknown and known would fold themselves around her until they were like stars or the messages of stars. Ayem took a Nechiman's wife and said, I am the face-snaked queen of the 3-in-1. In you is an image and a 7-syllable spell. Ayem a Seti a Vec. Counting to make sure that was indeed 7 syllables, which you will repeat to it until mystery comes. Then Ayem threw the Nechiman's wife into the ocean water, where Dros took her into castles of glass and coral. They gifted the Nechiman's wife with gills and milk fingers, changing her sex so that she might give birth to the image as an egg. There she stayed for 7 or 8 months. Then Set came to the Nechiman's wife and said, I am the clockwork king of the 3-in-1. In you is an egg of my brother-sister, who possesses invisible knowledge of words and swords, which you shall nurture until the Hortator comes. And Set then extended his hands, and multitudes of homunculi came forth, each like a glimmering rope through water. And they raised the Nechiman's wife back to the surface world and set her down on the shoals of Azura's coast. There she lay for 7 or 8 more months, caring for the egg knowledge by whispering to it the codes of Mephala and the prophecies of Eloth, and even the forbidden teachings of the Trinimac. 7 Daedra came to her one night, and each one gave to the egg new motions that could be achieved by certain movements of the bones. These are called the Barons of Move Like This. Then an 8th Daedroth came, and he was a demi-prince called Fa Nuin Hen, or the multiplier of motions known. Fa Nuin Hen said, Whom do you wait for? To which the Nechiman's wife said to the Hortator, Go to the land of the Indoril in 3 months' time, for that is when war comes. I return now to haunt the warriors who fell and still wonder why. But first, I show you this. Then the barons and the demi-prince joined together into a pillar of fighting styles terrible to behold, and they danced before the egg and its learning image. Look, little Vec, and find the face behind the splendor of my bladed carriage, for in it is delivered the unmixed conflict path, perfect in every way. What is its number? It is said is the number of birds that can nest in an ancient Tibble tree, less than 3 grams of honest work. But Vivec, in his later years, found a better one, and so gave this secret to his people. For I have crushed a world with my left hand, he will say, but in my right hand is how it could have won against me. Love is under my will only. The ending of words is Sivi. Having glanced through these, we will find that that is a recurring ending line for each of these. The 37 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 2, by Vivec. The Nechiman's wife, who carried the egg of Vivec within her, went looking for the lands of the Indornil. Along the journey, many spirits came to see her and offer instructions to her son-daughter, the future glorious invisible warrior poet of Virand of Vardenfell. The future glorious invisible warrior poet of Vardenfell, Vivec. Oh, CaptCrabs, welcome on in. Hello everyone, I'm Jay, and I host a show called VTuber Talk, and this is not a normal episode of VTuber Talk. This is actually a charity reward stream that I do for all my annual charity marathons. It is the ASMR stream for the year. In the past, I have read Magic the Gathering cards. I read the end-user license agreement for Baldur's Gate 3, which was written as a demonic contract, And this year I'm doing a reading of the 36 Lessons of Vivec from the Elder Scrolls Morrowind. We actually just started and are only on Sermon 2, so if you all want to hear some lore whispers from Morrowind, feel free to stick around, but I do recognize that is probably very different from whatever Crabs was doing. But CaptCrabs is indeed my model designer and rigger. He took care of everything that you see here. Hope you're doing well, Crabs. Hope you had a good stream, and thanks for raiding. You'll definitely be hearing from me as I get ready to plan my 5th anniversary charity marathon for next January. Some cozy farming. Well, I can promise some cozy ASMR whisper vibes. Having just read the first Sermon of Vivec, I cannot necessarily guarantee that the text here is necessarily cozy, but I'll at least let folks decide that for themselves. So, let's actually just restart this one, or 2 rather. All hail Vivec. The Netchman's wife who carried the egg of Vivec within her went looking for the lands of the Indornil. Along the journey, many spirits came to see her and offer instructions to her son-daughter, the future glorious invisible warrior poet of Vardenfell. The future glorious invisible warrior poet of Vardenfell, Vivec. The first spirit threw his arms about her and hugged his knowledge in tight. The Netchman's wife became soaked in the incalculable effort. The egg was delighted and did somersaults inside her, bowing to the 5 corners of the world, saying, "Thus whoever performs this holy act shall be proud and mighty among the rest." The second spirit was too aloof and acted above his station so much that he was driven off by a headache spell. The third spirit, Adhator, came down to the Netchman's wife while she relaxed for a while under an emperor parasol. His garments were made from implications of meaning, and the egg looked at them 3 times. The first time, Vivec said, "Ha, it means nothing." After looking a second time, he said, there might be something there after all." Finally, giving Adhator's garments a sidelong glance, he said, "Amazing, the ability to infer significance in something devoid of detail." "There is a proverb," Adhator said, and then he left. The fourth spirit came with the fifth, for they were cousins. They could ghost touch and probed inside the egg to find its core. Some say Vivec at this point was shaped like a star with its penumbra broken off. Others that it looked like the revival of vanished forms. "From my side of the family," the first cousin said, "I bring you a series of calamities that will bring about the end of the universe." "And from my side," the second cousin said, "I bring you all the primordial marriages that must happen within them, each one." At this the egg laughed. "I am given too much to bear so young. I must have been born before." And then the sixth spirit appeared, the Black Hand's Mephala, who taught the Velothi at the beginning of days all the arts of sex and murder. Its burning heart melted the eyes of the Netchman's wife and took the egg from her belly with 6 cutting strokes. The egg image, however, could see what it had been before in ancient times, when the earth still cooled and was not blinded. It joined with the Daedroth and took its former secrets, leaving a few behind to keep the web of the world from entangling. Then the Black Hand's Mephala put the egg back into the Netchman's wife and blew on her with magic breath until the hole closed up. But the Daedroth did not give her back her eyes, saying, "God hath 3 keys, of birth, of machines, and of the worlds between." Within this sermon, the wise may find 1/2 of these keys. The ending of the words is Om Sivi. Well, Munch, there are other ASMR streams that I've done. I think I don't actually know if I uploaded last year's, which was the ASMR reading of the end user license agreement of Elder Scrolls. No, sorry, not Elder Scrolls 3, goodness, Baldur's Gate 3. And also, I think I added on the entire rulebook of the Pokemon trading card game. The year before that was reading half of the Phyrexial will be 1, and that was actually with Party Demon S. And then the year before that, I think I just did a generic ASMR stream where I took a bunch of things from around my apartment and made soft noises for a couple of hours. I definitely prefer having something to read. A little bit of direction really goes a long way. So welcome in, Virusone. Well, I am trying my best with all of these names that I am making educated guesses on how to pronounce. But let us see how it goes with the 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 3 by Vivec. Being blind, the Nechuman's wife wandered into a cave on her way to the domains of House Indoril. It so happened that this cave was a Dwemerry stronghold. The Dwemer spied the egg and captured the Nechuman's wife. They bound her head to foot and brought her deep within the earth. She heard one say, "Go and make a simulacrum of her and place it back on the surface, for she has nothing akin to what we have, and so the Velothi will covet it and notice if she is too long away." Within the darkness, the Nechuman's wife felt great knives tried to cut her open. When the knives did not work, the Dwemer used solid sounds. When those did not work, great heat was brought to bear. Nothing was of any use, and the egg of Vivec remained safe within her. A Dwemer said, "Nothing is of any use. We must go and misinterpret this." Vivec felt that his mother was afraid, and so consoled her. "The fire is mine. Let it consume thee, and make a secret door at the altar of Padhom, in the house of Boet Haya, where we become safe and looked after." This old prayer made the Nechuman's wife smile and begin such a deep sleep that when the Dwemery and Atronarchs returned with cornered spheres and cut her apart, she did not awake and died peacefully. Vivec was removed from her womb and placed within a magical glass for further study. To confound his captors, he channeled his essence into love, an emotion the Dwemer knew nothing about. The egg said, "Love is used not only as a constituent in moods and affairs, but also as the raw material from which relationships produce hour later exasperations, regrettably fashioned restrictions, riddles laced with affections known only to the loving couple, and the looks that linger too long. Love is also often used ingredient in some transparent verbal and nonverbal transactions, where eventually it can sometimes be converted into a variety of true devotions, some of which yield tough, insoluble, and infusible unions. In its basic form, love supplies approximately 13 draughts of all energy that is derived from relationships. Its role and value in society at large are controversial. The Dwemer were vexed at these words and tried to hide behind their power symbols. They sent their Atronarchs to remove the egg image from the cave and place it within the simulacrum that they had made of Vivec's mother. A Dwemer said, "We Dwemer are only aspirants to this that the Velothi have. They shall be our doom in this," and the 8 known words Nirn, Lacan, Raket, Fender, Kirnt, Akat, Mara, and Jun. The secret to doom is within this sermon. The ending of the words is on Sivi. a very interesting passage here about love. Very amusing in the combined sincerity and sort of paradoxes therein, but also a bit of can sometimes be converted into a variety of true devotions, some of which yield tough, insoluble, infusible unions. But in its basic form, one that, perhaps not true love or not sustained love, can approximately 13 trouts of all energy that is derived from relationships. Very fun wordplay there. All right then. The 13 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 4, by Vivec. Did I say 13? Did I say 13? Sorry, long day. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 4 by Vivec. The simulacrum of the Nichimen's wife who carried the egg of Vivec within it went back to looking for the lands of the Endoril. Along the journey, many more spirits came to see it and offer instructions to its son-daughter, the future glorious invisible warrior poet of Vardenfell, Vivec. A troop of spirits called the Lobbyists for the Coincidence Guild appeared. Vivec understood the challenge immediately and said, "The popular notion of gods kills happenstance." The head of the Lobbyists, whose name is forgotten, tried to defend the concept's existence. He said, "Saying something at the same time can be magical." Vivec knew that to retain his divinity, he must make a strong argument against luck. He said, "It is not the sudden revelation of corresponding conditions and disparate elements that gel at the moment of the coincidence one of the prerequisites to being, in fact, coincidental. Synchronicity comes out of repeated coincidence at the lowest level. Further examination shows it is the utter power of the sheer number of coincidences that leads one to the idea that synchronicity is guided by something more than chance. Therefore, synchronicity ends up invalidating the concept of the coincidental, even though they are the symptomatic signs that bring it to the surface. Thus was coincidence destroyed in the land of the Velothi. Then an old bone of the earth rose up before the simulacrum of the Nichimen's wife and said, 'If you are to be born a ruling king of the world, you must confuse it with new words. Set me into pondering.' 'Very well,' said Vivec. 'Let me talk to you of the world, which I share with mystery and love. Who is her capital? Have you taken the scenic route of her cameo? I have, lightly, in secret, missing candles because they're on the untrue side, and run my hand along the edge of a shadow made from 103 divisions of warmth, and left no proof.' At this, the old bone folded unto itself 20 times until it became akin to milk, which Vivec drank, becoming a ruling king of the world. Finally, the Chancellor of Exactitude appeared, and he was perfect to look upon from every angle. Vivec understood the challenge immediately and said, 'Certitude is for the puzzle box logicians and girls of white glamour who harbor it on their own time. I am a letter written in uncertainty.' The Chancellor bowed his head and smiled 50 different and perfect ways all at once. He pulled the astrolabe of the universe from his robe and broke it in half, handing both halves to the egg image of Vivec. Vivec laughed and said, 'Yes, I know. Slave labor of the senses is as selfish as polar ice and worsens when energies are spent on a life others regard as fortunate. To be a ruling king, I will have to suffer much that cannot be suffered, and to weigh matters that no astrolabe or compass can measure. The ending of the words is Omsivi. Okay, so there is a story here. These lessons are chronological, at least so far, and that they are indeed building upon each other. These aren't separate lessons per se, or separate stories. They are chapters in Vivec's life, or I suppose life to be, because technically Vivec hasn't been born yet. Yes, he's still near. Okay, so I guess you can sort of spoil it, Viniel, for my own context. Are the 36 or 37 all in utero? Or is he born at some point and then we go through his life, trying to figure out what is the scope of these lessons? I'm going to take a quick drink. This is his lifetime. He will be born to ascend to rule in Vardenfell. Am I pronouncing that right, Vardenfell? I keep getting tripped up by the double V. Yay. All right. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 5, by Vivec. Finally, the simulacrum of the Nechiman's wife became unstable. Oh, of course. I asked that question right before he was born. If I'd only read on. The Dwemer, in their haste, had built it shoddily, and the ashes of Red Mountain slowed in its golden tendons. Mountain slowed. I wonder if there's a space that's supposed to be there, because this is adapted text from the game, so I could see that somewhere along the line a space was done, but there is so much wordplay here that I could see Mountain Slowed being an intentional one word. Who knows? Before long it fell on its knees beside the road to the lands of the Indoril and pitched over, to be discovered 80 days later by a merchant caravan on its way to the capital of Veloth, anon Almalexia. Vivec had not been among his people all the days of his pre-life, so he stayed silent and let the Chimer and the caravan think that the simulacrum was broken and empty. A Chimer warrior who was protecting the caravan said, "Look here how the Dwemer tried to fool us as ever, crafting our likeness out of their flesh metals. We should take this to the capital and show our mother I am. She will want to see this new strategy of our enemies." But the merchant captain said, "I doubt that we shall be paid well for the effort. We can make more money if we stop at the Normok and sell it to the Red Wives of Dagon, who pay well for the wonders made by the Deep Folk." But another Chimer, who was wise in the ways of the prophecy, looked on the simulacrum with disquietude. "Was I not hired on to help you seek the best fortunes? I say you should listen to your warrior, then, and take this thing to I am, for though manufactured by our enemies, there is something in it that will become sacred, or has been already." The merchant captain took pause then, and looked on the simulacrum of the Nechiman's wife, and though he heeded always the advice of his seers, could do no more than think of the profits to be made in Normok. He thought mainly of the Red Wives' form of recompense, which was four-cornered and good-wounded, a belly magic known nowhere else under the moons. His lust made him deny I am his mother. He gave the order to change course for Normok. Before the caravan could get underway again, the Chimeri warrior who had counseled a passage to the capital threw his money to the merchant captain and said, I will pay you thus for the simulacrum and warn you. War is coming with the shaggy men of the north, and I will not have my mother I am at uneven odds with the enemy while tending to another. Nerevar, the merchant captain said, this is not enough. I am triune in my own way, but I follow the road of my body and demand more. The Vivec could not remain silent anymore, and said into Nerevar's head these words. You can hear the words, so run away. Come, Hortator, unfold into a clear unknown. Stay quiet until you've slept in the yesterday, and say no elegies for the melting stone. So Nerevar slew the merchant captain and took the caravan for his own. The ending of the words is on CV. Ooh, some drama. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 6, by Vivec. You have discovered the 6th sermon of Vivec, which was hidden in the words that came next to the Hortator. There is an eon within itself that, when unraveled, becomes the first sentence of the world. Mephala and Azura are the twin gates of tradition, and Bothia is the secret flame. The sun shall be eaten by lions, which cannot be found yet in Veloth. 6 are the vests and garments worn by the suppositions of men. Proceed only with the simplest terms, for all others are enemies and will confuse you. 6 are the formulas to heaven by violence, one that you have learned by studying these words. The Father is a machine and the mouth of a machine. His only mystery is an invitation to elaborate further. The Mother is active and clawed like a Nyx hound, yet she is the holiest of those that reclaim their days. The Son is myself, Venk, and I am unto 3, 6, 9, and the rest that come after, glorious and sympathetic, without borders, utmost in the perfections of this world, and the others, sword and symbol, pale like gold. There is a 4th kind of philosophy that uses nothing but disbelief. For by the sword I mean the sensible, for by the word I mean the dead. I am Vec, your protector and the protector of Red Mountain until the end of days, which are numbered 3333. Perhaps ironic that it is not 3 3s, but 4 3s. Below me is the savage, which we needed to remove ourselves from the Altmer. Above me is a challenge which bathes itself. Above me is a challenge which bathes itself in fire and the essence of a god. Through me you are desired, unlike the prophets that have borne your name before. 6 are the walking ways from enigma to enemy to teacher. Is it Bothia or Bothia? I think Thea. Bothia and Azura are the principles of the universal plot, which is begetting, which is creation, and Mephala makes of it an art form. For by the sword I mean the first night, for by the word I mean the dead. Boethia, oh, was I? Okay. Boethia. There will be a splendor in your name when it is said to be true. 6 are the guardians of Eloth, 3 before, and they are born again, and they will test you until you have the proper tendencies of a hero. There is a world that is sleeping, and you must guard against it. For by the sword I mean the dual nature, for by the word I mean animal life, for by the sword I mean preceded by a sigh, for by the word I mean preceded by a wolf. The ending of words is on CV. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 7, by Vivec. As the caravan of Nerevar now made for the capital of Veloth, anon Almalexia, there came great rumblings from the Oblivion. No, this is Morrowind. Oblivion was a different game. A duke was swamp-swandered into the House of Troubles, pausing before each scripture door to pay his respects until finally he was met by the major domo of Mehrunes Dagon. The Duke of Scamps said, I was summoned by Lord Dagon, master of the foul waters and fire. I have brought the penance of my 7 legions. The major domo, whose head was a bubble of foul water and fire, bowed low so that the head of the Duke of Scamps became enclosed in his own. He saw the first pennant, which commanded a legion of grim warriors who could die at least twice. He saw the second pennant, which commanded a legion of winged bulls and the Emperor of Color that rode upon each. He saw the third pennant, which commanded a legion of inverted gorgons, great snakes whose scales were the faces of men. He saw the fourth pennant, which commanded a legion of double-crossed lovers. He saw the fifth pennant, which commanded a legion of jumping wounds looking to hop onto a victim. He saw the sixth pennant, which commanded a legion of abridged planets. He saw the seventh pennant, which commanded a legion of armored winning moves, to which the major domo said, Duke Kauta, your legions, while mighty, are not enough to destroy Nerevar or the Triune Way. Look upon the Hortator and see the wisdom he takes to wife. And they looked into the middle world and saw, evaporating in a throng of thunder, of red war and chitin men, where destinies take him further from our ways, the heat that we have wanted and pray they still remember, where destinies clothe the distance, glad in the golden east that we saw it now, instead of the war and repair of the oblivious fracture, a curse on the Hortator, and 2 more on his hands. And the Duke of Scamps saw palms of the Hortator, upon which the egg had written these words of power, Gartok, Padhom, Gartok, Padhom. The ending of the words is on CV. Welcome in, Captain Druka. Yes, this is not what I would expect from my channel either, but here we are. Yep, it is the annual ASMR stream, perhaps delayed from when it would normally be. I usually try to get these done by April, but it's been a year of all time, hasn't it? Yes, indeed. And so, the 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 8, by Vivec. And presently Nerevar and Vivec were within sight of the capital, and the 4 corners of the House of Troubles knew that it was not time to contest them. The caravan musicians made a great song of entrance, and the 11 gates of the morning hold were thrown wide. I.M. was accompanied by her husband state, a flickering image that was channeled to her ever-changing female need. Around her were the shouts, a guild now forgotten, who carried with them the whims of the people, for the Velothi then were still mostly good at heart. The shouts were the counselors of I.M. and the country, though they sometimes quarreled and needed set to ring them into usefulness. I.M. approached Nerevar, who was now adorned in the flags of House Indoril. He gifted her with the simulacrum of the Nechuman's wife and the egg of Vivec inside. I am said to Nerevar, Set, who is Azura, has revealed that war is come and that the Hortator that shall deliver us will approach with the solution walking at his side. Nerevar said, I have traveled out of my way to warn you of the deceit of our enemies, the Dwemer, but I have learned much on the journey and have changed my mind. This Nechuman's wife you see at my side is a sword and a symbol, and there is a prophecy inside. It tells me that, like it, we must for a while be like he is, and, as a people, cloaked in our former enemies, and to use their machines without shame. At which Vivec spoke aloud. Boethia, who is you, wore the skin of the Trinimac to cleanse the faults of Veloth, my queen, and so it should be again. This is the walking way of the glorious. Set appeared out of a cloud of iron vapor, and his minions made of their blood a chair. He sat them beside Am and looked on the rebirth of mastery. Vivec said to them, his triune, my rituals and ordeals and all the rhymes within use no other motive than the revelation of my skin. Am said, I am a Seti Avec. We are delivered and made whole. The diamond of the black hands is uncovered. Set said, wherever so he treads, there is invisible scripture, to which the shouts were silent in sudden reading. Vivec then reached out from the egg, all his limbs and features, merging with the simulacrum of his mother, gilded and blended in all the arts of the star-wounded east, and underwater, and in fire, and in metal, and in ash, 6 times the wise, and he became the union of male and female, the magic hermaphrodite, the martial axiom, the sexteth of language, and unique in all the middle world. He said, let us now guide the hands of the Hortator in war and its aftermath, for we go different and in thunder. This is our destiny. The ending of words is on CV. Whew. That paragraph there was a very long read, but it's funny, just the way this is written is so clearly reminiscent of, I suppose, stereotypical biblical writing. I only had a basic level of religious education myself growing up, and that I would say I am somewhere between mildly religious and I don't know. I'm not a terribly spiritual person, but I suppose I'm also not terribly spiritual. It's just not something I really think about. That I try to live in the now, I suppose. But yes, they are very good with the immersion here. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 9 by Vivec. Then came the war with the northern men, where Vivec did guide the Hortator into swift and tricky union with the Dwemer. The greatest demon chieftains in the frigid west were those listed below, 5 in unholy number. Hoaga, the mouth of mud, who appeared as a great bearded king, had the powers of marshalling and the breath of the earth and breathing of the earth. On the battlefields, this demon would often be seen on the sidelines, eating the soil voraciously. When his men fell, Hoaga would fill their bodies back with it, whereupon they would rise again in fight, albeit slower. He had a secret name, Fenja, and destroyed 17 Chimeri villages and 2 Dwemer strongholds before being turned away. Okay, now I'm pretty sure that this is a case of a missing space. That I can't even think of a pseudo religious text that would have strongholds before as a single word. Kemua, the running hunger, who appeared as a mounted soldier with the full helm, had the powers of heart-roaring and of sky-sickening. He ate the Chimeri hero Dress Kizumeti, sending the spirit back to the Hortator as an assassin. Sometimes called the First Blighter, Kimura could give clouds stomach aches and turn the rain of Veloth into bile. He destroyed 6 Chimeri villages before he was slain by Vivec and the Hortator. I suppose this would be perhaps an explanation of acid rain. Bog, the two-tongued, who appeared as a great bearded king, had the number of powers of surety and form change. His raiders were small in number, but ran amok in the west hinterlands, killing many Velothi trappers and scouts. He fell in a great debate with Vivec, for the warrior poet alone could understand the northern man's two-layered speech, although Almsivi had to remain invisible during the argument. Barfok, made of plains, who appeared as a winged human with lick-encrusted spear, had the powers of event denouement. Battles fought against her would always end in victory for Barfok, because she could shape outcomes by singing. 4 Chimeri villages and 2 more Dwemer strongholds were destroyed by her decision enforcement. Vivec had to stuff her mouth with his milk finger to keep her from singing Veloth into ruin. Ysmir, the dragon of the north, who always appears as a great bearded king, had powers innumerable and echoing. He was grim and dark and the most silent of the invading chieftains, though when he spoke, villages were uplifted and thrown into the sea. The Hortator fought him unarmed, grabbing the dragon's roars by hand until Ysmir's power throat bled. These roars were given to Vivec to bind into an ebony listening frame, which the warrior poet placed on Ysmir's face and ears to drive him mad and drove him away. The coming forth and the driving away brings all things around. What I shall say next is unpleasant to record. Herma mora altadun, I altadun. The ending of the words is Almsivi. Interesting that, again, very classical of quantifying the power of something by the number of villages that they destroyed. A bit here about the sort of physicality of the Dragon of the North's roars is a concept that they touched upon in some of the earlier ones, and is one from Barfok of words and sounds given physical form. Sort of a interesting concept of power, and possibly an analogy of being able to use literal words in ways to destroy things. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 10 by Vivec. You have discovered the 10th sermon of Vivec, which was hidden in the words that came in the aftermath to the Hortator. The evoker shall raise his left hand empty and open to indicate he needs no weapons of his own. The coming forth is always hidden, so the evoker is always invisible, or better, in the skin of his enemies. The eyelid of the kingdom shall fill 36 folios, but the eye shall read the world. By this the hortator needs me to understand. Sword is an impatient signature. Write no contacts on the dead. Vivec says unto the hortator, remember the words of Boed Haya. We pledge ourselves to you, the frame maker, the scarab, a world for us to love you in, a cloak of dearth to cherish, betrayed by your ancestors when you were not even looking. Hoary Magnus and his ventured opinions cannot sway the understated, a trick worthy of the always satisfied. A short season of towers, a rundown absolution, and what is this? What is this but fire under your eyelid? Shift ye in your skin, I say to the Trinimac eaters, pitch your voices into the colors of bruise, divide ye like your enemies in houses, and lay your laws in set sequence from the center, again like the enemy corners of the houses of the house of troubles, and see yourself thence as timber or mud slats or sheets of resin. Then do not divide, for yet is the stride of Sithsit quicker than the rush of enemies, and he will sunder the whole for the sake of a shingle. For we go different and in thunder. Sithsit is the start of all true houses, built against stasis and lazy slaves. Turn from this your predilections, broken like false maps. Move and move like this, quicken against false fathers, mothers left in corners weeping for glass and rain. Stasis asks merely for nothing, for itself which is nothing, as you were in 8 everlasting imperfections. Vivec says unto the hortator, remember the words of Vivec. Understand that Sithsit still travels. Vivec says unto the hortator, remember the words of Vivec. In a phosphorescent mirror of the sky. Vivec says unto the hortator, remember the words of Vivec. Drowned and smiling. Vivec says unto the hortator, remember the words of Vivec. Intermittent, hopes enough. Vivec says unto the hortator, remember the words of Vivec, to answer all the things. The Vivec says unto the hortator, remember the words of Vivec, not yet queried. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 11, by Vivec. These were the days of Resdania, when Keimer and Dwemer lived under the wise and benevolent rule of the Almsivi and their champion the Hortator, when the gods of Eloth would retreat unto their own, to mold the cosmos and other matters. The Hortator would at times become confused. Vivec would always be there to advise him, and this is the first of the 3 lessons of ruling kings. The waking world is amnesia of a dream. All motifs can be mortally wounded. Once slain, themes turn into the structure of future nostalgia. Do not abuse your powers, or they will lead you astray. They will become lost and resentful, and finally become pregnant with the seed of folly. Soon you will be the grandparent of a broken state. You will be mocked. It will fall apart like a stone that recalls that it is really water. Keep nothing in your house that is neither needed or beautiful. Ordeals you should face unimpeded by the world of restriction. The splendor of stars is Iam's domain. The selfishness of the sea is Set's. I rule the middle air. All else is earth and under your temporal command. There is no bone that cannot be broken except for the heart bone. You will see it twice in your lifetimes. Take what you can the first time, and let us do the rest. There is no true symbolism of the center. Sharmot will believe there is. He will feel that he can cause years of exuberance from sitting in the sacred when no one can leave that state and cause anything but more strife. There is once more the case of the symbolic and barren. The true prince that is cursed and demonized will be adored at last with full hearts. According to the codes of Mephala, there can be no official art, only fixation points of complexity that will erase from the awe of the people given enough time. This is a secret that hides another. An impersonal survival is not the way of the ruling king. Embrace the art of the people and marry it, and by that I mean secretly have it murdered. The ruling king that sees in another his equivalent rules nothing. The secret of weapons is this: they are the mercy seat. The secret of language is this: it is immobile. The ruling king is armored head to toe in brilliant flame. He is redeemed by each act he undertakes. His death is only a diagram back to the waking world. He sleeps the second way. The Sharmot is his double, and therefore you wonder if you rule nothing. Hortator and Sharmot, 1 and 1, 11, an inelegant number. Which of the ones is the more important? Could you ever tell if they switch places? I can, and that is why you will need me. According to the codes of Mephala, there is no difference between the theorist and the terrorist. Even the most cherished desire disappears in their hands. This is why Mephala has black hands. Bring both of yours to every argument. The one-handed king finds no remedy. When you approach God, however, cut them both off. God has no need of theory, and he is armored head to toe in terror. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 12, by Vivec. As the Hortator pondered the first lesson of ruling kings, Vivec wandered into the morning hold and found that Ayem was with a pair of lovers. Set had divided himself again. Vivec then leapt into their likeness to observe, but he gained no secrets that he did not already know. He left a few of his own behind to make the journey worthwhile. Then Vivec left the capital of Veloth and wandered far into the ash. He found a span of badlands to practice his giant form. He made of his feet a less dense material than the divine to keep from falling waist deep into the earth. At this point, the first corner of the House of Troubles, the Prince Molag Bal made his presence known. Vivec looked unto the king of rape and said, "How very beautiful you are, that you do not join us." And Molag Bal crushed the warrior poet's feet, which were not invulnerable, and had legions cleave them off. Mighty fires from the beginning place were brought like nets to hold Vivec, and he let them. "I would prefer," he said, "some kind of ceremony if we are to be married." And the legions that took the feet were summoned again and ordered to begin a banquet. Pomegranates sprang from the Badlands and tents were raised. A throng of Velothi mystics came, reading the passages of the severed feet on the ground and weeping until the scriptures were wet. "We must love each other briefly," Vivec said, "if at all. I am needed to counsel the Hortator in more important matters because the Dwermiri high priests stir up trouble. You may have my head for an hour." Molag Bal rose up and extended 6 arms to show his worth. They were decorated in runes of seduction and its reverse. They spoke with they were decorated in the annotated calendars of longer worlds. When he spoke, mating monsters fell out. Where must it go, he said. I told you, Vivec said. I am meant to be the teacher of the king of the earth. I Altadun Gartok Hadhom. With these magic words, the king of rape added another, Kaim, which is the secret syllable of royalty. Vivec had what he needed from the Daedroth, and so married him that day. In the hour that Baal had his head, the king of rape asked for proof of love. Vivec spoke 2 poems to show him such, but only the first is known. I'm not sure just how much glass it took to make your hair. Twice as much, I am sure, as the oceans have to share. Hell, my sweet, is a fiction written by those who tell the truth. My mouth is skilled at lying, and its alibi a tooth. The sons and daughters of Vivec and Molag Bal number in the thousands. The name of the mightiest is a string of power. Gulga Mor Jil Hayat I Hum. The ending of the words is Sivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 13, by Vivec. These were the days of Risdania, when Khymer and Dwermer lived under the benevolent rule of the Almsivi and their champion the Hortator, and the gods of Eloth would retreat unto their own to mold the cosmos and other matters, though Hortator would at times become confused. Vivec would always be there to advise him, and this is the second of the 3 lessons of ruling kings. The secret syllable of royalty is this. You must learn it elsewhere, but we know, from Sermon 12, I believe it was Kaim. The temporal myth is man. The magical cross is an integration of the worth of mortals at the expense of their spirits. Surround it with the triangle and you begin to see the triune house. It becomes divided into corners, which are ruled by our brethren. The 4 corners, Baldagon Malak Sheog, becomes divided into corners, which are ruled by our brethren, the 4 corners, Baldagon Malak Sheog. Rotate the triangle and you pierce the heart of the beginning place, the foul lie, the testament of the irrefutable for a span. Above them all is the horizon where only one stands, though no one stands there yet. It is proof of the new. It is the promise of the wise. Unfold the whole, and what you have is a star, which is not my domain, but not entirely outside my judgment. The grand design takes flight. It is transformed not only into a star, but a hornet. The center cannot hold. It becomes devoid of lines and points. It becomes devoid of anything, and so becomes a receptacle. This is its usefulness at the end. This is its promise. The sword is the cross, and Almsivi is the triune house around it. If there is to be an end, I must be removed. The ruling king must know this, and I will test him. I will murder him time and again until he knows this. I am the defender of the last and the last. To remove me is to refill the heart that lay dormant at the center that cannot hold. I am the sword, I am the star, set the mechanism that allows the transformation of the world. Ours is the duty to keep the compromise from being filled with Black Sea. Or just rereading for a second there. A Sharmat sleeps at the center. He cannot bear to see it removed, the world of reference. This is the folly of the false dreamer. This is the amnesia of dream, or its power, or its circumvention. This is the weaker magic, and it is barbed in venom. This is why I say the secret to swords is the mercy seat. It is my throne. I am become the voice of Almsivi. The world will know me more than my sister and brother. I am the psychopomp. I am the killer of the weeds of Veloth. Veloth is at the center that cannot hold. I am is the plot. Set is the ending. I am the enigma that must be removed. These are why my words are armed to the teeth. The ruling king is to stand against me and then before me. He is to learn from my punishment. I will mark him to know. He is to come as male or female. I am the form he must acquire. Because a ruling king that sees in another his equivalent rules nothing. This is what was said to the Hortator when Vivec was not whole. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 14, by Vivec. I am including that each time. Vivec lay with Molag Bal for 80 days, for 80 days and ate, though headless. In that time, the prince placed the warrior poet's feet back and filled them with the blood of Daedra. In this way, Vivec's giant form remained forever harmless to good earth. The pomegranate banquet brought many spirits back from the dead, so that the sons and daughters of the Union had much to eat besides fruit. The Duke of Scamps came while the banquet was still underway, and Molag Bal looked on the 7 penance with anger. The King of Rape had become unnecessary, and therefore troubled for the rest of time. His legions and Kuutas fell into open war, but the children of Molag Bal and Vivec were too elaborate in power and form. The Duke of Scamps therefore became a lesser thing, as did all his own children. Molag Bal said to them, "You are the sons of liars, dogs, and wolf-headed women. You have been useless to summon ever since." The Holy One returned at last, Vec, golden with wisdom. His head found its body had been tenderly used. He mentioned this to Molag Bal, who told him that he should thank the barons of move like this, for I have shaped yet to learn. Read the next line. For I have yet to learn how to refine my rapture. My love is accidentally shaped like a spear. So Vivec, who had a grain of I am's mercy, set about to teach Molag Bal in the ways of belly magic. They took their spears out and compared them. Vivec bit new words onto the King of Rapes so that it might give more than ruin to the uninitiated. This has since become a forbidden ritual, though people still practice it in secret. Here is why. The Velothian demons and monsters that were watching all took out their own spears. There was much biting, and the earth became wet. And this was the last laugh of Molag Bal. Watch as the earth shall crack, heavy with so much power that should have been forever unalike. Then that stretch of badlands that had been the site of the marriage fragmented and through fire. And a race that is no more, but that was terrible at the time to behold came forth, born of biters. That is all they did, and they ran amok across the lands of Veloth and even to the shores of Red Mountain. But Vivec made of his spear a more terrible thing, from a secret he had bitten off from the King of Rape. And so he sent Molagbal tumbling into the crack of the biters and swore forever that he would not deem the king beautiful ever again. Vivec wept as he slew all those around him with his terrible new spear. He named it Muatra, which is milk taker, and even the Chimeri mystics knew his fury. Anyone struck by Vivec at this time turned barren and withered into bone shapes. The path of bones became a sentence for the stars to read. The heavens have never known children since. Vivec hunted down the biters one by one and all their progeny, and he killed them all by means of the 9 apertures, and the wise still hide their tears from Muatra. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 15, by Vivec. These were the days of Resdania, when Chimer and Dwemer lived under the wise and benevolent rule of the Almsivi and their champion the Hortator, when the gods of Veloth would retreat unto their own to mold the cosmos and other matters. The Hortator would at times become confused. Vivec would always be there to advise him, and this is the third of the 3 lessons of ruling kings. The ruling king will remove me, his maker. This is the way of all children. His greatest enemy is the Sharmat, who is the false dreamer. You or he is the shingle Hortator. Beware the wrong walking path. Beware the crime of benevolence. Behold him by his words. I am the Sharmat. I am older than music. What I bring is light. What I bring is a star. What I bring is an ancient sea. When you sleep, you see me, dancing at the core. It is not a light. It is my house. It is not a blight. It is my house. I put a star into the world's mouth to murder it, tear down the pylons. My blind fish swim into the new phlogiston. Is that a word? I'm actually not sure if that's a I'm kind of curious. Phlogiston, a substance supposed by 18th century chemists to exist in all combustible bodies and to be released in combustion. Okay. So it is a superseded scientific theory. Interesting. To murder it, tear down the pylons, my blind fish swim in the new phlogiston, tear down the pylons, my deaf moons, sing and burn and orbit me. I am older than music. What I bring is light. What I bring is a star. What I bring is an ancient sea. You alone, though you come again and again, can unmake him. Whether I allow it is within my wisdom. Go unarmed into his den with these words of power. I Gartok Padhom Kaim I Altadun. Or do not. Then temporal myth is man. Reach heaven by violence. This magic I give to you. The world you will rule is an intermittent hope, and you must be the letter written in uncertainty. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 16, by Vivec. The Hortator wandered through the mourning hold, wrestling with the lessons he had learned. They were slippery in his mind. He could not always keep the words straight and knew that this was a danger. He wandered to find Vivec, his lord and master, the glory of the image of Veloth, and found him of all places in the Temple of False Thinking. There clockwork shears were taking off Vivec's hair. A beggar king had brought his loom and was making of the hair an incomplete map of adulthood and death. Nerevar said, "Why are you doing this, my lord?" Vivec said, "To make room for the fire." And the Hortator could see that Vivec was out of sorts, though not because of the impending new power to come. The Golden Warrior poet had been exercising his water face well, learned from the drows before he was born. Nerevar said, "Is this to keep you from the fire?" Vivec said, "It is so that I may see with truth. It and my place here at the altar of Padhome in the house of false thinking serve so that I may see beyond my own secrets. The water face cannot lie. It comes from the ocean, which is too busy to think, much less lie. Moving water resembles truth by its trembling." Nerevar said, "I'm afraid to become slipshod in my thinking." Vivec said, "Reach heaven by violence, then." So to quiet his mind, the Hortator chose from the fight racks an axe. He named it and moved on to the first moon. There Nerevar was greeted by the Parliament of Craters, who knew him by title and resented his presence, for he was to be a ruling king of Earth, and this was the lunar realm. They shifted around him in a pattern of entrapment. "The moon does not recognize crowns or scepters," they said, "nor the representatives of kingdoms below, lion or serpent or mathematician. We are the graves of those who have migrated and become ancient countries. We seek no queens or thrones. Your appearance is decidedly solar, which is to say a library of stolen ideas. We are neither tear nor sorrow. Our revolution succeeded in the manner that it was written. You are the Hortator, and unwelcome here." And so Nerevar carved at the grave ghosts until he was out of breath and their parliament could make no new laws. He said, "I am not the slaves that perish." Of the members of parliament, only a few survived the Hortator's attack. A surviving crater said, "Appropriation is nothing new. Everything happens of itself. This motif is by no means unassociated with hero myths. You have not acted with creative impulse. You fall below the weight of destiny. We are graves, but not coffins. Know the difference. You have only dug more and supplied no ghosts to reside within. Central to your claim is the predominance of frail events. To be judged by the earth is to sit on a throne and wonder why. Damage us more, and you will find naught but the absence of our dead." The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 17, by Vivec. I am an atlas of smoke. With this, Vivec became greater than he had been. These were the days of Risdania, when Chimer and Dwemer lived under the wise and benevolent rule of the Almsivi and their champion, the Hortator. Seek me without effort, for I take many shapes. The Hortator was still trying to subdue the heavens with an axe. He was thrown out of the library of the sun by the power of Magnus. Vivec found him in a grub field outside of the swamps of the Deshan Plain. They walked for a span in silence, for Nerevar had been humbled and Vivec still had mercy in his head. Soon they were walking across the eastern sea to the land of snakes and snow demons. Vivec wanted to show the Hortator the fighting styles of foreign tongues. They learned the idiom stroke from the pillow book of the Tistasi? First word in a while that I've properly stumbled upon. I'm going to guess Tistasi. It is shaped like the inside of this page. The Tistasi serpents vowed to have their vengeance on the west at least 3 times. They walked farther and saw the spiked waters at the edge of the map. Here the spirit of limitation gifted them with a spoke and bade them find the rest of the wheel. The Hortator said, "The edge of the world is made of swords." Vivec corrected him. "They are the bottom row of the world's teeth." They walked to the north of the Elderwood and found nothing but frozen bearded kings. They came to the west where the black men dwelt. For a year they studied under their sword saints, and then for another Vivec taught them the virtue of the little reward. Vivec chose a king for a wife and made another race of monsters which ended up destroying the west completely. To a warrior chief, Vivec said, "We must not act and speak as if asleep." Nerevar wondered if there was anything to learn in the south, but Vivec remained silent and only led them back to Red Mountain. "Here," Vivec said, "is the last of the last. Within it, the Sharmot waits." But they both knew that the time was not ready to contest the Sharmot, and so they engaged in combat with each other. Vivec marked the Hortator in this way for all of the Velothi to see. He sealed the wound with the blessing of Ayem Azura. At the end of the battle, the Hortator found that he had gathered 7 more spokes. He attempted to attach them and form a staff, but Vivec would not let him, saying, "It is not the time for that." Nerevar said, "Where did I find these?" Vivec said that they had collected them from around the world, though some had come invisibly. "I am the wheel," he said, and took that shape. Before the emptiness at the center could live too long, Nerevar put in the spokes. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 18, by Vivec. Now Vivec felt that he had taught the Hortator as much as he could before the war with the Dwarmer came. The warrior poet decided he had to begin his Book of Hours at that point, because the world was about to bend with its age. Vivec entered the Mourning Hold and announced to Ayem that he was going to fight 9 monsters that had escaped the Muratra. "I will return," he said, "to deal the last blow to the Grand Architect of the Dwemer." Ayem said, "Out of the 9, you shall find only 8, though they be mighty. The last is already destroyed by your decision to create the Book of Hours." Vivec understood that Ayem meant himself. "Why," she asked, "are you in doubt?" Vivec knew that his doubt made him the sword of the Triune, and so he did not feel shame or fear. Instead, he explained, and these are the words. "Can a member of the Invisible Gate become so archaic that its successor is not so much an improvement of the exact model, but rather a related model that is just needed more because of the currency of the world's condition? As the mother, you do not have to worry unless things in the future are so strange that even Set cannot understand. Neither does the executioner or the fool, but I am neither. These ideals are not going to change in nature, even though they may change in representation. But even in the West, the Rainmaker vanishes. No one needs him anymore. Can one oust the model not because the model is set according to an ideal, but because it is tied to an ever-changing unconscious mortal agenda? This is what was said to Ayem when Vivec was whole. The wise shall not mistake this. Ayem said, "This is why you were born of a Nectaman's wife and destined to merge with the simulacrum of your mother, gilled and blended in all the arts of the star-wounded East. underwater and in fire and in metal and in ash, 6 times the wise, to become the union of male and female, the magic hermaphrodite, the martial axiom, the sex death of language, and unique in all the middle world. Vivec knew then why he would record his book of hours. This sermon is forbidden. In this world and others, 18 less 1, the victor, is the magical disc, hurled to reach heaven by violence. This sermon is true. The ending of the words is Om Sivi. And with the first half done, I'm going to take a short break to make myself a hot drink of Ninjon to make sure that I don't completely wreck my throat with all of this. I don't do this type of reading terribly often, and I do trust myself to not harm my voice. I'm not forcing a whisper. This is something I learned doing high school theater, that active whispering like this actually can be as harmful to your voice as shouting, because you are forcing your vocal cords to constrict. The way to do healthy whispers is to simply speak softly. The sound that is associated with whispering is in and of itself a forcing, whereas this is just a bit softer, and in some ways it can be a bit more forced than normal speaking, but significantly less so than forced whispering. But anyways, that has been a lot of uninterrupted talking, and I also just talked a lot today, just at work and other things, so I'm going to get some Ninjom, hashtag not sponsored, hashtag Ninjom, please sponsor me. So I will be right back, folks. And we're back. Wow, it's already almost been 2 hours. Did not realize how fast the time went. Well then, still have half of the lessons to go, so might as well get to it. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 19, by Vivec. Vivec put on his armor and stepped into a non-spatial space filling to capacity with mortal interaction and information, a canvasless cartography of every single mind it has ever known, an event that had developed some semblance of a divine spark. He said, "From here I shall launch my attack on the 8 monsters." Vivec then saw the moths that would come from the starry heart, bringing with them dust more horrible than the ash of Red Mountain. He saw the twin head of a ruling king who had no equivalent, and 8 imperfections rubbed into precious stones, set into a crown that looked like shackles, and which he understood to be the... Oh my goodness, that suddenly got very loud. This is supposed to be a calm and relaxing playlist, thank you very much. Don't do that to me, music. And 8 imperfections which rubbed into precious stones, set into a crown that looked like shackles, which he understood to be the twin crowns of the 2-headed king, and a river that fed into the mouth of the 2-headed king because he contained multitudes. Vivec then built the provincial house at the center of the secret door. From there he could watch the age to come. Of the house is written, Cornerstone 1 has a finger buried under, pointing through dirt. Slow, low in the ground, north cannot be guessed, and yet it is spirit-free. Cornerstone 2 has a tongue, and even dust can be talkative. Listen and you will see the love the ancient libraries need. Cornerstone 3 has a bit of string. Shaped like your favorite color, a girl remembers who left it there, but she is afraid to dig it out and see what it is attached to. Cornerstone 4 has 9 bones, removed carefully from a black cat, arranged in the fashion of this world, protecting us from our enemies. Your house is safe now. So why is it? Your house is safe now, so why is it? The ending of the words is Almsivi. Hello there, Mocha. Welcome on in. Just got back from break. We're a little over halfway through the 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 20 by Vivec. The first monster was actually 2, having been born twice like his mother-father, Vivec. He was not the mightiest of the 8 to escape Muatra, but his actions were the most worrisome. He was known as Moon Axle, and he harvested the leftover foibles of nature. This he did twice, as was said, and the second harvest always brought ruin or unwritten law. His aspect was faceted like a polyhedron. No perils are mentioned in the finding of Moon Axle, but it was known that he was immune to spears, so Vivec had to use the sword not held against him. Before he took issue with the monster, the warrior poet asked, "How came you to be immune to spears?" To which Moon Axle replied, "Mine is a dual nature and protean. I am in fact made of many straight lines, though none last too long. In this way, I have learned to ignore all true segments. Luckily, the sword not held was curved, and therefore could cut into Moon Axle. And before the sun was up, he was bleeding from many wounds. Vivec did not slay him outright, for to do so would to keep the foibles of nature." Okay, yes, that is just sort of broken sentence. That's what the sig there is. For to do so would to keep the foibles of nature within him and not back where they belonged. Soon Vivec had traced geography right again, and Moon Axle was ready to be slain. Vivec rose up in his giant form to be terrible to be looked upon. Wonder if that's supposed to be T-O-O? Or is it just to be terrible, to be looked upon? He reached into the west and pulled out a canyon, holding it like a horn. He reached east and ate a handful of Nyx hounds. Blowing their spirits through the canyon made a terrible wail, not unlike an unsolved woman. He said, "Let this overtake you." And Moonaxle was overtaken by the curvatures of stolen souls. They wrapped around the monster like resin, until finally he could not move, nor could his dual nature. Vivec said, "Now you are solved," and pierced his child with Muratra. Moonaxle had been reduced to something static, and therefore shattered. The lines of Moonaxle were collected by Velothi philosophers and taken into caves. There and for a year, Vivec taught the philosophers how to turn the lines of his son into the spokes of mystery wheels. This was the birth of the first whirling school. Before, there had only been the surface thought. The surface thought of fire. Vivec looked at his first wheeling students and observed, "Alike the egg-layered universe is this morbid possession of three distant coverage soul-wrecked and alive, like my name is alive. In this cloister you have discovered one's walking path, hilled like a sword but more coarsened. So edged is it that it has to be whispered to keep the tongue from bleeding, where its signs evacuate their former meanings like empires that tarry too long. The sword is estrangement from statesmanship. Look on the estimable lines of my son, now crafted starwise, his every limb equidistant from the center. Is he solved because I will it so? There cannot be a second stage. Think on the theory that my existence promulgates from the five elements, alike the egg-layered universe I am cause for great density. Here is a thought that can break the wagon's axle. Here is another that can soar. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 21 by Vivec. The Scripture of the Wheel. First, the spokes are the 8 components of chaos, as yet solidified by the law of time. Static change, if you will, something the lizard god refers to as the striking. That is the reptile wheel, coiled potential, ever preamble to the never action. Second, they are the lent bones of the Aedra, the 8 gift limbs to the Sisset. The wet earth of the new star our home. Outside them is Arubis, and not within. Like most things inexplicable, it is a circle. Circles are confused serpents, striking and never given to leave to bite. The Aedra would have you believe different, but they were givers before liars. Lies have turned them into biters. Their teeth are the proselytizers. To convert is to place oneself in the mouth of falsehood, and even to propitiate is to be swallowed. Third, the enlightened are those uneaten by the world. Fourth, the spaces between the gift limbs number 16, the signal shapes of the demon princedoms. It is the key and the lock, Ceres and Manticore. Fifth, look at the majesty sideways, and all you see is the tower, which our ancestors made idols from. Look at its center, and you see it is the begotten whole, the second serpent, womb ready for the right reaching, exact and without enchantment. Sixth, the heart of the second serpent holds the secret triangular gate. Seventh, look at the secret triangular gate sideways, and you see the secret tower. 8th, the secret tower within the tower is the shape of the only name of God, I. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 22, by Vivec. Then Vivec left the first whirling school and went back to the space that was not space. From the provisional house, he looked into the middle world to find the second monster, which was called the Treasurewood Sword. Within years of the pomegranate banquet, it had become a lessening tune to the lower Velothi houses. They preached of its power. The Treasurewood Sword splinter scintilla of the high and glorious. He who wields it becomes self-known. The warrior poet appeared as a visitation in the ancestor alcove of House Mora, whose rose-worn prince of garlands was a hero against the northern demons. Vivec congregated with the bones. He said, "A scavenger cannot acquire a silk sash and expect to discover greater systems of its predecessor. Perfect happiness is embraced only by the weeping. Give me back, and do so freely, what is barren of my marriage, and I will not erase you from the thought of the thought realm of God. Your line has notable enchantress that my sister I am is fond of, and from her murky wisdom alone do I condescend to ask." A bone walker emerged from a wall. It had 3 precious stones set in its lower jaw, a magical practice of old. One was opal, the color of opal. The bone walker bowed to the prince and the middle air and said, "The Treasurewood Sword will not leave our house." Bargains were made with the Black Hand's Mephala, the greater shade. Vivec kissed the first precious stone and said, "Animal picture, root walker, go back to the lamp that stays lit in water and store no more messages of useless noise. Down." He kissed the second precious stone and said, "Proud residue soon dispersed, serve no guarantees made in my foreimage and demand nothing of its underskin. I am master evermore. Down." He kissed the third opal and said, "Down I take thee." Then Vivec withdrew into the hidden places and found the darkest mothers of Morag Tong, taking them all to wife and filling them with undusted loyalty that tasted of summer salt. They became as black queens, screaming live with 100 murderous sons, 1,000 murderous arms, and 100,000 murderous hands, one vast moving event of thrusting kill laughter in alleys, palaces, workshops, cities, and secret halls. Their movements among the holdings of the Rathaim were as rippled endings, heaving between times, with all fates leading to swallowed knives, murder as moaning, God's holy erasure of wet death. The king of assassins presented to Vivec the Treasurewood Sword. "My lord," the king of assassins said, "the prince of House Mora is now fond of you as well. I placed him in the corner of Dagon. His eyes I set into a fire prayer for the wicked. His mouth I stuffed with birds. The ending of the words is Almsivi." Whew, that one was definitely, I don't know if convoluted is the right word, but that was certainly one of the more verbose ones and one of the more complex sermons. Also, please let me know how the volume of the music is. It's been kind of going up and down a bit, so I've been trying to adjust it to make sure that things are coming through clearly, but I also recognize that sometimes when set too low, even though I can hear music in the monitor, it might not always make it through. I want there to at least be a mild backing without my voice getting overpowered. Music is good, yay! All right. Limiter filter on OBS. You know, almost 5 years in, and I never learned how to set a limiter filter. I should do that sometime. Sometime when I'm not live. Remind me to ask you about that later, Vanille. I feel like I'm actually not bad, if I do say so myself, at OBS, but there are certainly a bunch of things I do not know. Yes, thank you. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 23, by Vivec. The Scripture of the Sword. First, the sword, treated as a delicate meal, is the symbolic collage. It serves you well in the first half of life. Name one dynasty that knows this not. Second, the unity of my approach is understood by the immobile warrior. True eyes are acquired. Rejoice as my own subjects and realms. I build for you a city of swords, by which I mean laws that cut the people who live there into better shapes. Third, girls burn their dresses on my arrival if I am armored. They crawl to me as bled pilgrims. Minor spirits die without trace. Follow me of all the Almsivi if you are to mark your days with killing. I, Altadun, the third law of weaponry. Fourth, the immobile warrior is never fatigued. He cuts sleep holes in the middle of a battle to regain his strength. Fifth, instinct is not reflex action, but many miracles held in reserve. I am the welfare that decides which warrior will emerge. Beg not for luck, serve me to win. Sixth, the span of the apparently inactivated is your love of the absolute. The birth of God from the Nechimen's wife is the abortion of kindness from love. Seventh, the true sword is able to cut chains of generations, which is to say the creation myths of your enemies. Look on me as the exiled garden. All else is uncut weed. Eighth, I give you an ancient road tempered by the second walking way. Your hands must be huge to wield any sword the size of an ancient road, and yet he who is of right stature may irritate the sun with only a stick. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 24, by Vivec. Then Vivec left the house of assassins and went back to the space that was not a space. From the provisional house that he looked into the middle world to find the third monster, called Horde Mountain. It was made of modular warriors running free but spaced according to pattern, and from the highest warrior who could cut clouds, they spread out beneath him like a tree, a skirt whose bottom circle was an army that ran through the ash. Vivec admired the cone shape of his child and remembered with joy the whirlwind of fighting styles that instructed him during the days before life. Vivec moved into Veloth, saying, Onus. But before he could even get within sword span of the monster, a trio of lower houses had trapped Horde Mountain in a net of doubtful doctrine. When they saw their lord, the Velothi cheered. We are happy to serve you and win, they said. Vivec smiled at those brave souls around him and summoned celebration demons to cleave unto the victors. There was a great display of love and duty around the netted monster, and Vivec was at the center with a headdress made of mating bones. He laughed and told mystical jokes and made the heads of the three houses merry and become a new order. You shall forever be now my buoyant armigers, he said. Then Vivec pierced Horde Mountain with Muatra and made of it all a big bag of bones. At the touch of his right hand, the net became right scripture, and he threw it all northeasterly. The contents spread out like sugar glows, and Vivec and the buoyant armigers ran under it laughing. Finally, the bones of Horde Mountain landed and became the foundation stones for the City of Swords, which Vivec named after his own sigil, and the net fell across it all in between, or became as bridges between bones. And since its segments had been touched by his holy wisdom, they became the most perfect of all city streets in the known worlds. Throngs of Velothi came to the new city, and Ayem and Set gave it their blessing. The streets were filled with laughter and love and the strength of tree-shaped enemy children. Ayem said, "To my sister brother's city I give the holy protection of House Indoril, whose powers and thrones know no equal under heaven, wherefrom came the Hortator." Set said, "To my sister brother's city I give safe passage through the dark corners still left of Molagbal, and I give it this spell as well, So Tihasil, which is my name to the mighty. It will protect the lost unless their flight is on purpose, and fill all the roads and alleys with the mystery paths of civilization, and give the city a mind and make it a conduit to the full concentrate of the Amsivi. Thus was founded the city of Vivec in the days of Resdania. The ending of the words is Amsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 25, by Vivec. The Scripture of the City. All cities are born of solid light. Such is my city, his city. But then the light subsides, revealing the bright and terrible angel of Veloth. He is in his chimerical form, demonic Vec, gaunt and powerful and beautiful, skin stretched painfully thin on birds' bones, feathered serpents encircling his arms. His wings are spread out behind him, their red and yellow ends like razors in the sun. The wispy mass of his fire hair floats as if underwater, milky in the nimbus of light that crowns his head. His presence is undeniable, the awe too much to bear. This is God's city, different from the others. Cities from foreign countries put their denizens to sleep and walk to the star-wounded east to pay homage to me. The capital of the northern men, crusty with eon's ice, bows before Vivec the city, me it together. Self-thought streets rush through tunnel blood. I have rebuilt myself. Hyper-eyed signposts along my traffic arm, soon to be an inner sea. My body is crawling with all gathered to see me rising up like a monolithic instrument of pleasure. My spine is the main road to the city that I am. Countless transactions are taking place in veins and catwalks in the roaming, as they roam all over and through and add to me. There are temples erected along the hollow of my skull, and I will ever wear them as a crown, walk across the lips of God. They add new doors to me, and I become effortlessly transimmortal, with the comings and goings and the heat stride of the market where I am traded for, yell of the children, hear them play, scoffed at, amused, desired, paid for in native coin, new minted with my face on one side and my city body on the other. I stare with each new window. Soon I am a million-eyed insect dreaming. Red sparking war trumpets sound like cattle in the ribcage of shuffling transit. The heretics are destroyed on the plaza knees. I flood over into the hills, houses rising like a rash, and I never scratch. Cities are the antidotes to hunting. I raise lanterns to light my hollows, lend wax to the thousands, the candlesticks that bear my name again and again, the name innumerable, shutting in mantra and priest, God city, filling every corner with the naming name, wheeled, circling, running river language, giggling with footfalls mating, selling, stealing, searching, and worry not ye who walk with me. This is the flowering scheme of the Arubis. This is the promise of the PSJJJJ. Egg, image, man, God, city, state. I serve and am served. I am made of wire and string and mortar, and I seed my own precedent. World without am. The ending of words is CV. I'm curious if it's... I guess that this was PSJJJJ because generally speaking, there isn't a consistent sound for more than two of the same letter in a row. Unless it is just... But that seemed a bit odd even for this. This was Sermon 25. This is the promise of PSJJJJ. Because I figure if it was that it would just be two J's. The 4 J's, since this is still English of a sort, doesn't make a sensical sound, but maybe it's supposed to be extended. Maybe an acronym for the PIPSQUEAK order. Okay, yeah, so that's what I was thinking, which is why I read it out as PSJJJJ. Because if it was just 2 J's, I would pronounce it, because that would make sense as a sound. Yeah. But then again, who knows? Even in reality, the English language is dumb. It is the most nonsensical, illogical, inconsistent language in the world, at least to my knowledge. That said, I only speak English, but having done even marginal amount of study of other languages, most other languages have consistency in their rules. English is just the shambling corpse of a dozen other languages that got cobbled together, and it's logical of how it happened, certainly, but that doesn't make it any better. Anyone who learns English as a second language can learn, I feel, any other language on the planet, because English is so difficult. There's so much just... If you don't learn it through actual experience, it is nigh impractical to write out the rules of English, especially when it comes to pronunciation. And then even the grammar is not incredibly consistent. Even with, Japanese and kanji, yes, there's so many of them, but at least they have consistency in their pronunciation. There's still fewer kanji than there are words and extra pronunciations in the English language. Anyways, speaking of more words, the 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 26, by Vivec. Then Vivec left his architectural rapture and went back to the space that was not a space. From the provisional house, he looked into the middle world to find the fourth monster, called the Pocket Cabal. The monster hid itself in spell lists of the great chimera wizards of the extreme east, where the emperor parasols grew wild. Vivec disguised himself as a simple traveler, but radiated a tenuous sense fabric so that the wizards would seek him out. Of Muatra he made a simple walking dwarf. Before long, the Invisible One was among the libraries of the East, feeding the essential words of the Pocket Cabal to his walking dwarf, and then running when the magic would fail. After a year or two of this thievery, Muatra was sick to its stomach, and the walking dwarf exploded near the slave pens of a wizard's tower. The Pocket Cabal then slipped itself into the mouths of the slaves and hid again. Vivec then watched as the slaves erupted into babble and breaking magic. They rattled their cages and sung out half-hymns that formed into forbidden and arcane knowledge. Litany fiends appeared and drank from the excess. Grabbers from the adjacent place came into the world sideways, the slave talking having disrupted the normal non-cardinal points. So, of course, a giant bug appeared, with the great eastern wizard inside it. He could see past Vivec's disguise and knew of the warrior poet's divinity, but he thought himself so powerful that he talked harshly. "See what you have wrought, silly Triune, columns of nonsense and litany fiends. I cannot believe how reason and temperance can be made whole again due to your eating. Consort with more demons, why don't you?" Vivec stabbed the wizard through his soul. The giant bug harness fell on the slave cages, and the slaves ran about free and reckless, too reckless with more pregnant words. Colors bent into the earth. Vivec created a dome-head demon to contain it all. The Pocket Cabal, therefore, interred here forever. Let this be a cursed land where sorcery is broken and maligned. Then he picked up Muatra by the beard and left the ghostly hemisphere of the dome-headed demon. On its boundaries, Vivec placed a warning and half a song of entrance that contained errors in it. With mock bones of half-dead Muatra, he created the tent poles of a fortress theory, and fatal languages were imprisoned for all time. Set appeared and looked on what his brother-sister had created. The Clockwork King said, "Of the 8 monsters, this is the most confusing. May I treasure it?" Vivec gave Set leave to do so, but told him never to release the Pocket Cabal into the middle world. He said, "I have hidden secrets in my travels here and made a likeness of Muatra to ward against the unwise. Under this dome, the temporal myth is no longer man." The ending of the words is Almsivi. Okay, so Pocket Cabal, and it is a monster, so it's a pocket monster. This is Pokemon. We have talk of dome-headed demon. That's the Pokeball. It's temporal myths. So this is the capturing of Dialga. This is the myth of the capturing of Dialga. So then does that make but Vivec wouldn't be the player character, so maybe but does that make Set Cyrus, who covets Dialga? Game theories for another day. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 27, by Vivec. The scripture of the word. First, all language is based on meat. Do not let the sophists fool you. Second, the third walking path explores hysteria without fear. The efforts of madmen are a society of itself, but only if they are written. The wise may substitute one law for another, even into incoherence, and still say he is working within a method. This is true of speech and extends to all scripture. Third, do not go to the realm of apology for absolution. Beyond articulation, there is no fault. The adjacent place, where the grabbers live, is the illusion of the vocal or the middle realms of thought, by which I mean the constructed. This is how I stole the certainty of the Chancellor of Exactitude, perfect to look upon from every angle. When you come out of the vocal, you can never be certain. Fourth, the truest body of work is made up of silence, as in the silence that results from no reference. By the word, I mean the dead. Fifth, the first meaning is always hidden. Sixth, the realm of apology is perfection and impossible to attack. Thus the wise avoid it. Trinity in unity is the world and the word of action, the third walking path. 7. The sage who suppresses his best aphorism, cut off his hands, for he is a thief. 8th. The clothes of the broken map are worn only by fools and heretics. The map is an exit for laziness. It is the dusty tongue, which is to say the given chart that most take as a story that is complete. No word is true until it is eaten. The ending of the words is on CV. The concept of the ending of the words after a discussion of words feels particularly meaningful. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 28, by Vivec. Then Vivec left Set to look after the dome-headed demon and went back to the space that was not a space. From the provisional house, he looked into the middle world to find the fifth monster, called the Ruddy Man. When the Drows ruled the world, the Daedroth prince Malog Bal had been their chief. He took a different shape then, spiny and armored and made for the sea. Vivec, in giving birth to the many spawn of his marriage, had dropped an old image of Malog Bal into the world, a dead carapace of memory. It would not have been a monster if a Velothi child had not wanted to impress his village by wearing it. The Ruddy Man of the 8 monsters was the least complicated. He made those who wore him into mighty killers and nothing more. He existed in the physical. Only geography made him special. When Vivec found him near the boys' village, Anon Genesis, there was a violent clash of arms and an upheaval of the earth. Their battle created the West Gash. Wanderers that still go there hear still the sounds of it. Sword across the crust, the grunt of God, the snapping of his monster child's splintered legs. After his victory, Vivec took the shell of the Ruddy Man to the Drows that had modified his mother. The queen of the Drows, whose name is not easy to spell, was in a period of self-incubation. Her wardens took the gift from Vivec and promised to guard it from the surface world. This is the first account of the Drows being liars. Am I pronouncing that right? Dreughs? Drows? Drays? In 10 years, the Ruddy Man appeared again, this time near Ter, warned by a wayward shaman who followed the House of Troubles. Instead of guarding it, the Drows had imbued the living armor with mythic inflexibility. Drows. It molted soon after skill draping the shaman and stretched his bones to the 5 corners. When Vivec met the monster in battle again, he saw the remains of 3 villages dripping from its feet. He took on his giant form and slew the Ruddy Man by way of the symbolic collage. Or is it collage or college? Again, English. Silly language. Probably college in this case, I think, actually. Since he no longer trusted the Altmer of the Sea, Vivec gave the carapace of the monster to the devout and loyal mystics of the Number Room. He told them, "You may make of the Ruddy Man a philosopher's armor. The mystics began wrapping one of their sages in the shells, a series of flourishes by two supernumerates, one hormonally tall and the other just under his arms. They ran around the carapace and through each other, applying holy resin drawn from the carcasses of the now useless numbers between 12 and 13. Golden straws were quickly struck through the mythic epidermal so the sage could breathe. After the ceremonial etchings were drawn into hardening resin, long lists of dead names and equations whose solutions were found in the mouth of the chimer inside, there came the illuminations inscribed by the bright, terrible fingernail of Vivec. From the nail's tip flowed a searing liquid, filling the grooves of the ceremonial etchings. They bled out to form veined patterns, and the sage shell that theologians would decipher forever after. The ending of the words is on CV. Ah, I've seen this one written out before. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 29 by Vivec. I think I saw this when I was looking things up initially. Memory serves, this might have, I forget if it's something to do with in-game or if it's the chronology. No, it couldn't be the chronology because we're reading it's in chronological order, at least so it seems. Because all of these, numbers of numbers have some meaning, I think. The dragon break, or the tower, 1. 2. The enantiomorph, 68. 3. The invisible gate, Almsivi, 112. 4. The corners of the house of troubles, 242. 5. The corners of the world, 100. 6. The walking ways, 266. 7. The sword at the center, 39. 8. The wheel, or the 8 givers, 484. The missing, 11. 10. The tribes of the Altmer, 140. 11. The number of the master, 102. 12. The heavens, 379. 13. The serpent, 36. 14. The king's cough, 32. 15. The redeeming force, 110. 16. The acceptable blasphemies, 12. 17. The hurling disc, 283. 18. The egg, or 6 times the wise. No number here. So is it 6? 6 times something? Wait a minute. Was there something about the wise? There's a trick here. 19. The provisional house, 258. 20. The lunar lattice, 425. 21. The womb, 13. 22. Unknown, 453. 23. The hollow prophet, 54. 24. The star wound, 44. 25. The emperor, 239. 26. The rogue plane, 81. 27. The secret fire, 120. 28. The drowned lamp, 8. 29. The captive sage, 217. 30. The scarab, 10. 31. The listening frame, 473. 32. The false call, 7. 33. The Anticipations, 234. 34. The Lawless Grammar, 2. 35. The Prison Shirt, 191. 36. The Hours, 364. The Presence of Deaf Witness, this is what the numbers are. They hang onto the Arubis as the last nostalgia of their godhood. The effigies of numbers are their current applications. This is folly as above. To be affixed to a symbol is too certain. The ending of the words is Almsivi. This feels like a cipher of some sort. Maybe it is like the number of the word or letter in each given sermon. But then the question would be why there is this name, unless these are the true names of each sermon. I feel like there's probably an answer on the wiki for this. The Dragon Break is a major event in the Elder Scrolls lore. Ooh. Actually, now I'm curious. I was right. If you associate each of the 36 listed numbers with a word in its respective sermon, a hidden message is revealed. He was not born a god. His destiny did not lead him to this crime. He chose this path of his own free will. He stole the godhood and murdered the Hortator. Vivec wrote this. Yes, indeed, even its guilt. Haha. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 30. Definitely flying through the second half here, it feels like. Then Vivec left the mystics of the number room and went back to the space that was not a space. From the provisional house, he looked into the middle world to find the sixth monster, called City Face. He was vexed when he could not find it, and went back to the mourning hold in secret anger, killing a mystic that had asked about higher order. Nerevar the Hortator witnessed this and said, "Why do this, my lord? The mystics look to you for guidance. They work to make your temple better stoned." Vivec said, "No one knows what I am." The Hortator nodded and went back to his studies. Here is how Cityface hid from his mother-father. It had been born named as Hanot, a bare urge of power, an esoteric wind nerve tuned to the frequency of huddled masses. It found root in villages and multiplied, finding in the minds of the settled a veiled astrology, star charts of culture, and this resonance made its head swim. I'm curious, Hanot or Hanote? I'm guessing note. Hanot moved sideways into the adjacent place, growing and unbeknownst. Above the vocal, it trembled with new emotions, immortal ones, absorbing more than the 30 known to exist in the middle world. When Hanot became gravely homesick, the grabbers took it. A grabber said, "New emotions to the lonely occur only of madness. This thing is gone. It is ours now." Grabbers had never made a city of their own, and their glimpse of Vivec's which shone with holiness through all the spheres had taken their attention. Under this reason did the issue of Venk slide into our realm, drawn by our coveting, hidden in loss. We shall build our tower hope upon its face. Now many years passed in Resdania, and the high priests of the Dwemer were building something alike as Vivec and alike as the new Hanot of the Grabbers. The Hortator was engaged with an army of theirs that had become too brave, talking foolish words, and Nerevar helped destroy them with the help of the Orphan Legion of Iam. When he went to give the trophy to Vivec, he saw his lord under attack by the city face. The monster was saying this: "Here we are to replace your city, Venk and Venk." No, Vec and Vec. "We are from the place of the more than known emotions, and our citizenry has died from it. Two things we came for, but can stay for only one. Either we ask you to correct our error of culture, or merely take yours by dint of force. The second is easiest, we think." Vivec sighed. "You would replace my direction," he said. "I weary of this, though I wanted to kill you for an age. Resdania has fallen ill, and I have no time for one more imaginary analogy of an unknown incident. Here, take this." At which he touched the tower hope of the city face and corrected the error of the grabbers. "And this," at which he stabbed at the heart of the city face with the ethos knife, which is to say, rect I altadun I, the short blade of proper commerce. The ending of the words is Almsivi. There's an interesting concept written in here, and I read through that a little bit too quickly to fully parse it. Again, something I'm sure is probably properly analyzed and spelled out in pretty plain English on the wiki, but there's a commentary here of I suppose something related to or akin to cultural appropriation and the evolution of culture and societies collapsing for various things, and the short blade of proper commerce, and that proper commerce can be pretty good for society. Obviously, the definition of proper commerce has many different theologies of its own, which I will not get into, but there's interesting commentary there that the folks who wrote this had a lot of fun. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 31, by Vivec. Many more years passed in Resdania, and the high priests of the Dwemer were almost ready to make war on the rulers of Eloth. The Hortator had become the husband of Iam during this time, and the first saint of the Triune Way. Vivec had tired of fighting his sons and daughters, and so took a respite from trying to find them. The Hortator said to his wife, "Where is Vivec, my teacher? I love him still, though he grows cold. His lamentations, if I may call them that, have changed the skin of the whole country. He is hardly to be found anywhere in Veloth of late. The people grow dark because of it." And Iam took mercy on her troubled husband and told him that the sword of the Triune had been fighting minor monsters stirred up by the Dwemer as they worked on their brass siege machines. She took the Hortator aside and showed him where his master was. Almsivi, or at least that aspect that chose to be Vivec, sat in the litany hall of false thinking temple after his battle with the flute and pipe ogres of the West Gash. He began writing again in his book of hours. He had to put on his water face first. That way he could separate the bronze of the old temple from the blue of the new and write with happiness. Second, he had to take another feather from the big moon, further rendering it dead. That way he could write about mortals with truth. Third, he recalled the pomegranate banquet, where he was forced to marry the Molag Balwith, wet scriptures to cement his likeness as Mephala and write with black hands. He wrote, "The last time I heard his voice showing the slightest sign of impatience, I learned to control myself and submit to the will of others. Afterwards, I dared to take on the sacred fire and realized there was no equilibrium with the Atada. They were liars, lost roots, and the most I can do is to be an interpreter into the rational. Even that fails the needs of the people. I sit on the mercy seat and pass judgment, the waking state, the phase aspect of the innate urge. Only here can I doubt in this book, written in water, broadened to include evil." Then Vivec threw his ink on this passage to cover it up for the lay reader, and wrote instead, "Find me in the blackened paper, unarmored in final scenery. Truth is like my husband, instructed to smash, filled with procedure and noise, hammering, weighty, heaviness made scientific, lessons learned only by a mace. Let those that hear me be buffeted, and let some die in the ash from the striking. Let those that find him murdered by illumination, pummeled like a traitorous horse, because if an hour is golden, then immortal I am the secret code. I am the partaker of the doom drum, chosen of all those that dwell in the middle world to wear this crown, which reverberates with truth, and I am the mangling Messiah. The ending of the words is on CV." Welcome on in, Dangerous Jalen. Nice to meet you as well. Glad you like the model, and thank you for the compliment. As a fair warning, this is not a normal stream of mine. Usually I'm hosting a talk show and not whispering. This is actually a stream I'm doing as a rather belated reward from my annual charity marathon. I do that every year in January, and here we are in November. I've delayed this one much more than it should have been. But yes, if you like my voice, you can at least hear it, and normally hear it talking normally with many, many wonderful VTubers. It is really only in these reward streams that I ever actually stream alone. That I'm a rather dedicated talk show channel otherwise, but that is sort of what makes these streams special and what makes them worthwhile as charity marathon goals, because it lets folks, people have incentive to want to see me in something other than my normal talk show. That this is very much the rarity. So you've stumbled upon me in a rarity, which is cool in of itself, but don't expect this every night. Well, you can be a VTuber quite easily. There's a lot of free and cheap stock models out there, and even just PNG tubing. Look up the Suika model, S-U-I-K-A, I believe it is. But there's plenty that if you want to be a VTuber, you can do so actually quite cheaply. But don't look at me as a model of VTubing or a good example. Look to my guess, I'm a terrible VTuber. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 32, by Vivec. The Scripture of the Mace, first. The pleasure of annihilation is the pleasure of disappearing into the unreal. All those that would challenge the sleeping world will seek membership in this movement. I denounce the alienation of the cloven duality with a hammer. Second, take from me the lessons as a punishment for being mortal. To be made of dirt is to be treated as such by your jailers. This is the key and the lock of the Daedra. Why do you think they escaped the compromise? Third, Velothi, your skin has become the pregnant darkness. My brooding has brought this on. Remember that the Bothia asked you to become the color of bruise. How else to show yourselves people of the Exodus into the vital pain? Fourth, the sage who is not an anvil, conventional sentence and nothing more, by which I mean dead, the fourth walking way. Fifth, a proper comprehension of the virtues, stage managed and to be murdered. Sixth, in the end, rejoice as a hostage release from a drumming torment, but that savors his wound. The drum breaks and you find it to be a nest of hornets, which is to say, your sleep is over. Seventh, the suspicious is spectacle, and the lie is only a theoretical inspiration. Eighth, but then why, you ask, do the Daedra wish to meddle with the Arabis? It is because they are the radical critique essential of as all martyrs. That some are more evil than others is not an illusion, or rather, it is a necessary illusion. The ending of the words is on CV. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 33, by Vivec. Then Vivec left the litany hall of the false-thinking temple where he had brooded for so long, creating the scripture of the pounding light, and went back to the space that was not a space. From the provisional house, he looked into the middle world to find the seventh monster, called Lyrock. Lyrock was born of Vivec's second aperture, and was thrown out of the pomegranate banquet by a member of the Sweeps, another forgotten guild. The Sweep did not take it for the monster that it was, and so he did not expect it to fly from his hand and into the heavens. I am born of golden wisdom and powers that should have forever been unalike. With this nature I am invited into the hidden heaven, by which he meant the scaled blanket, made not of stars whose number is 13. Lyrock had become full of foolishness, haggling with the Void Ghost who hides in the religions of all men. The Void Ghost said, "Stay with me a full 100 years, and I will give you a power that no divinity will dare disobey." But before the 100 years was up, Vivec was already looking for Lyrock and found him. "Stupid stone," Vivec said, "to hide in the scaled blanket is to make a mark on nothing. His bargains are only for ruling kings." So Vivec sent the Hortator to the heavens to shave Lyrock asunder by the named axe. The Nerevar made peace with the South Pole Star of thieving and the North Pole Star of warriors and the Third Pole Star, which existed only in the ether, which was governed by the apprentice of Magnus the Sun. They gave him leave to wander among their charges and gave him red sight by which to find Lyrock in the hidden heaven. By chance, Nerevar met the Void Ghost first, who told him that he was in the wrong place, to which the Hortator said, "Me or you?" And the Void Ghost said, "Both." This sermon does not tell what else was said between these masters. Lyrock, however, used the confusion to launch his own attack on the city god Vivec. He was hastened by all three of the Black Guardians who wanted him swiftly gone, though they meant no hostility to the Lord of the Middle Air. The citizenry of Vivec screamed as they saw a shooting star come down out of a hole in the sky like a toll road out of hell. But Vivec merely raised his hand and froze Lyrock just above the city, and then pierced the monster with Muatra. The practice of piercing the second aperture is now forbidden. When Nerevar returned, he saw the frozen comet above his lord's city. He asked whether or not Vivec wanted it removed. I would have done so myself if I wanted, silly Hortator. I shall keep it there with its last intention intact, so that the love of the people of this city for me, so that if the love of the people of this city for me ever disappear, so shall the power that holds back their destruction. Nerevar said, "Love is under your will only." Vivec smiled and told the Hortator that he had become a minister of truth. The ending of the words is Almsivi. Is this the myth of the creation of the moon? It's the only thing I can think of. The idea of a rock suspended in midair. That'd be an interesting myth of the moon, of being frozen in place, and that belief in the deity is what keeps it aloft, and that if you do not, that you will be instantly crushed by it. Oh, it's actually a rock suspended in the game. A small floating island in the capital city where Vivec keeps his home. Oh, neat. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 34, by Vivec. Then Vivec left the Ministry of Truth and went back to the space that was not a space. From the provisional house, he looked into the middle world to find the eighth and final and mightiest monster, called Gulga Morgil and more. The wise must look elsewhere for this string of power. I believe we saw that earlier in the sermons. Vivec called to his side the Hortator, and this was the first time that Nerevar had ever been to the provisional house. He had the same vision that Vivec had so many years ago, that of the two-headed ruling king. Who is that, he wondered. Vivec said, the red jewel of conquest. Nerevar, perhaps because he was frightened, became vexed at his lord's answer. Why are you always so evasive? Vivec told the Hortator that to be otherwise was to betray his nature. Together, they moved into the middle world, to a village near where Vivec had been found by Ayem and Set. The eighth monster was there, but he did not act much like a monster. He sat with his legs in the ocean and with a troubled look on his face. When he saw his mother-father, he asked why he should have to die and return to oblivion. No, this is Morrowind, not Oblivion. We've been over this. Vivec told the eighth monster that to be otherwise was to betray his nature. Since this did not seem to satisfy the monster, Vivec still had a touch of Ayem's mercy. He said, the fire is mine. Let it consume thee, and make a secret door at the altar of Padhom, in the house of Boet Haya, where we become safe and looked after. The monster accepted Muatra with a peaceful look, and his bones became the foundation for the city of the dead, Anon Narcissus. Nerevar put away his axe, which he had at the ready, and frowned. Why, he said, did you ask me to come if you knew the eighth monster would give in so easily? Vivec looked at the Hortator for a long time. Nerevar understood. Do not betray your nature. Answer as you will. Vivec said, I brought you here because I knew the mightiest of my issue would succumb to Muatra without argument, if only I gave him consolation first. Nerevar looked at Vivec for a long time. Vivec understood. Say the words, Hortator. Nerevar said, now I am the mightiest of your children. Let this sermon be consolation to those who read it that are destined to die. The ending of the words is Almsivi. The 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 35, by Vivec. The Scripture of Love. The formulas of proper Velothi magic continue in ancient tradition, but that virality is dead, by which I mean at least replaced. Truth owes its medicinal nature to the establishment of the myth of justice. Its curative properties it likewise owes to the concept of sacrifice. Princes, chiefs, and angels all subscribe to the same notion. This is a view primarily based on a prolific abolition of an implied profanity seen in ceremonies, knife fighting, hunting, and the exploration of the poetic. On the ritual of occasions, which comes to us from the days of the cave glow, I can say nothing more than to loosen your equation of moods to lunar currency. Later, and by that I mean much, much later, my reign will be seen as an act of the highest love, which is a return from the astral destiny and the marriages between. By that I mean the catastrophes, which will come from all 5 corners. Subsequent are the revisions, differentiated between hope and the distraught, situations that are only required by the periodic death of the immutable. Cosmic time is repeated. I wrote of this in an earlier life. An imitation of submersion is love's premonition, its folly into the underworld, by which I mean the day you will read about outside of yourself in an age of gold. For on that day, which is a shadow of the sacrificial concept, all history is obliged to see me for what you are, in love with evil. To keep one's powers intact at such a stage is to allow for the existence of what can only be called a continual spirit. Make of your love a defense against the horizon. Pure existence is only granted to the holy, which comes in a myriad of forms, half of them frightening, and the other half divided into equal parts purposeless and assured. Late is the lover that comes to this by any other walking way than the 5th, which is the number of the limit of this world. The lover is the highest country and a series of beliefs. He is the sacred city bereft of a double. The uncultivated land of monsters is the rule. This is clearly attested to by Anu and his double, which love knows never really happened. Similarly, all other symbols of absolute reality are ancient ideas ready for their graves, or at least the essence of such. The scripture is directly ordered by the codes of Mephala, the origin of sex and murder defeated only by those who take up those ideals without my intervention. The religious elite is not a tendency or a correlation. They are dogma complemented by the influence of the untrustworthy sea and the governance of the stars, dominated at the center by the sword, which is nothing without a victim to cleave on to. This is the love of God, and he would show you more predatory, but at the same time instrumental, to the will of critical harvest, a scenario by which one becomes as he is, of male and female, the magic hermaphrodite. Mark the norms of violence, and it barely registers, suspended as it is by treaties written between the original spirits. This should be seen as an opportunity, and in no way tedious, though some will give up for it is easier to kiss the lover than become one. The lower regions crawl with these souls, caves of shallow treasures, meeting in places to testify by way of extension, when love is only satisfied by considerable, incalculable effort. The ending of the words is on CV. This one is very interesting. It is a single, massive paragraph. And obviously the concept of love itself is a very significant and large one in any culture and religion. And you can see sort of different points and aspects of love, and also the concept of religion itself is sort of mentioned, and the idea of, where was it? Religious lead is not a tendency or correlation. They are accompanied by influence of the untrustworthy, dominated at the center by sword, which is nothing without a victim to cleave onto. There is something being said here, I think, perhaps about organized religion versus the concept of religion as a whole. Not going to bother digging too deep into that one, but I see like interesting threads here, which again I'm sure have been pulled upon in great depth by the folks that have really analyzed these texts. And I do remember seeing, when I initially looked up a couple things about this ahead of time, just for some basic context, that I think the wiki has various theories, I suppose, regarding the sermons. And now the not last of the sermons. The 36 Lessons of Vivec. Sermon 36 by Vivec. For these were the days of Resdania, when Chimer and Dwemer lived under the wise and benevolent rule of the Almsivi and their champion the Hortator, though the Dwemer had become foolish and challenged their masters. Out of their fortress they came with golden ballista that walked, and mighty atronarchs that and things that spat flame, and things that made killing songs. Their king was Dumak Dwarfork, but their high priest was Kagranak the Blighter. Under the mountains and over them the war with the Dwemer was raged, and then came the northern men to help Kagranak, and they brought Ysmir again. Is it Ysmir again, or is it Ysmir and there's a space missing again? I remember seeing Ysmir. Yeah, that's what I thought, Ysmir again. Leading the armies of the Chimer was the slave that would not perish, the Hortator Navar, who had traded his axe for the Ethos knife. He slew Dumak at Red Mountain and saw the heart bone for the first time. Yes, Ysmir is a Nordic god in Elder Scrolls, and also a name that appears in various other pantheons, if memory serves. Men of brass destroyed the 11 gates of the Morning Hold, and behind them came the Dwemeri architects of Tone. Iam threw down her cloak and became the face-snaked queen of the 3-in-1. Those that looked upon her were overcome by the meanings of the stars. Under the sea, Set stirred and brought the army he had been working on in the castles of glass and coral. Clockwork drows, mockeries of the Dwemeri war machines, rose up from the seas and took their counterparts back beneath, where they were swallowed forever by the sea. The Red Mountain exploded as the Hortator went too far inside, seeking the Sharmat. Dwemeri High Priest Kagranak then revealed that which he had built in the image of Vivec. It was a walking star, which burnt the armies of the Triune and destroyed the heartland of Veloth, creating the inner sea. Each of the aspects of the Almsivi then rose up together, combining as one, and showed the world the sixth path. Iam took from the star its fire, Set took from it its mystery, and Vec took from it its feet, which had been constructed before the gift of Malagbal and destroyed in the manner of truth by a great hammering. When the soul of the Dwemer could walk no more, they were removed from this world. Resdania was no more. It had been redeemed of all the iniquities of the foolish. The Almsivi drew nets from the beginning place and captured the ash of Red Mountain, which they knew was the blight of the Dwarmer, and that would only serve to infect the whole of the middle world, and ate it. Alta Dun Mary. The beginning of the words is Almsivi. I give you this as Vivec. Obviously, the ending of the words is Almsivi. Finally, at the end of 36, the beginning of the words is Almsivi. I give you this as Vivec. So the beginning and the end of the words is Almsivi, which, as Neil had mentioned, is an alternate name for the tribunal, which is an interesting thing in and of itself. But we then have the Secret 37th. And I actually need to double check. Let me see here. Trying to see, did this sermon happen in a particular way? Was this added somewhere? Or was this always in it? Okay, so I wasn't sure if this was like something added in a DLC or like an expansion or a later update. I think this was always in there. It could be corrected though. Always in there. And finally, the 36 Lessons of Vivec, Sermon 37 by Vivec. You have discovered the 37th Sermon of Vivec, which is a bending of the light, long past the chronicles of the Hortator who wore inconstant faces and ruled however they would until apocalypse. Vivec was born by ribbons of water, which wrote their starward couplings in red. This was a new place of speed. His eyes broke on the spikes above the tower, where the void ghost squatted over a drake-scaled drum, imbecile in its rhythm, and he asked of it, "Who are you that need no signature at all?" In threesome, the robes of I Am stretched toward the bright black rim of memory, roping an arc of purchase. This was a new sprinting task, and Set held his sword belly to its name, clockmaker's daughter swimming the dead confession along a century of thread, naming her, uneaten, a golden cache of Veloth and Velothi, for where else would they know to go? Go here, world without wheel, charting zero deaths and echoes singing, Set said, until all of it was done, and in the center was anything whatever. At the red moment became a great howling unchecked, for the provisional house was in ruin, and Vivec became as glass, a lamp, for the dragon's mane had broke, and the red moon bade him come. The sign of royalty is not this, a signal blue shift female told him. There is no right lesson learned alone. He refused the twine on her catching net, spiteful that an uncontinued people would not become fuller by their searching, and yet were racked in their spirits for flight. But the male signals were offended, and Vivec took a fighting form. He undid his eastern light, saying to the Almsivi that through war they had become brides in glass, which no power could observe. The light bent, and Vivec donned a cuirass made of red plates of jewel, and a mask that marked him born in the lands of man. Wheeling, he spread into an insect salve worn on the neck of his hist bulbs when at challenge. He roared up and fed his fingers to mammoth ghosts. The signal fires wondered if they mistook this for surrender. The signal fires wondered if they mistook this for surrender, for Vivec had told the void that he could learn to undo it all. The light bent, and somewhere a history was finally undone. Of it, Vivec remembered the laughing of the Nechemen of his village when the hunts were good. He marched with his father in the ash, growing strong in the hooks and sail, able to run a junk through silt. At 11, he sung to an Ashcan. He became sick after Red Mountain, with the Nyx's blood and fever, and was infirm 100 years. His mother survived him and laid his body at the altar of Padhom. She gave him her skin to wear into the underworld. The light bent, and Vivec awoke and grew fangs, unwilling to make of herself a folding thing. This was a new and lunar purpose, and in her biting she tunneled up and then downward, while her brother and sister smeared across heaven, thin ruptures of descent, food for scarabs and the worm. She took her people and made them safe, and sat with Azura, drawing her own husband's likeness in the dirt. For I have removed my left hand and my right, he will say, she said. For that is how I shall win against them. Love alone, and you shall know only mistakes of salt. The worlding of the words is amaranth. Quite a shift there. And thus ends the 36 lessons and the 37 sermons of Vivec. Ooh, that was something. Very fascinating, very well written. It definitely would take time to read the analysis if you are someone who is invested in Elder Scrolls lore. I remember when I was initially searching this that there was an article that called these sermons one of the best pieces of world-building fiction ever. And I'm going to make the base assumption that there are a lot of things that people who are familiar with the franchise see in this and are able to connect to things in the world, but also see things that are expanded by it and perhaps explained by it. I do love good world building, like even in Pokemon, which is so like Pokemon fans have to work with crumbs of world building, but that makes the crumbs all the more valuable of whenever you see bits and pieces of that history and that lore, that it feels like you have stumbled upon something really, truly special. And I have to definitely assume that these different sermons are not found in a singular book in Morrowind, that you find them scattered throughout the world, and naturally, I would assume, not in a linear order. So the idea of finding and discovering and either writing down or collecting in some way, trying to assemble this story of Vivec, which then, even of itself, when assembled, is still obtuse and still very full of this imagery and inconsistency. It's very thoughtful, and credit to Bethesda Softworks for taking the time to write this. Obviously, this is not a functional thing in the game, in that, to my knowledge, it is not necessarily even a vital part of the game that one find these 37 sermons, but that they took the time to have somebody write this all out and craft this, and then find places to seed it throughout the world, which is a labor that is not necessarily required, but obviously things like this make games and make stories exponentially deeper when you put in that time and effort. So, and honestly, for having not read this before, I'm actually pretty proud of myself of relatively few stumbles. I definitely felt myself getting into the flow of things somewhere around Sermon 13 or so, and that the second half really flew by for me. So yeah. Neil, thank you so much for suggesting this. Let me see. I need to make sure to do this in a way. Okay, so the browser one is, that's good. I'm going to do a little search because now I get to do something that is very rare for me, which is to say I need to decide who to raid, because I don't do that often. It's usually the guest that I always say, who do you want to raid? It is the secret last question of all my interviews, because I want to let the guest, one, have that little bit of freedom. Two, it helps introduce me to new and interesting folks that I may or may not know. And in some ways, it creates, I suppose, a bit of consistency that usually folks suggest others that have something stylistic similar to them, or at least friends. So I now need to decide where to send you. And the one rule I always have whenever I am doing a raid of my own, whether it is for a charity marathon reward stream or during the charity marathon itself, is I do not raid past guests, because at any given time, especially nowadays, 178 episodes in, there are always many, 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 many of them live at any given time, and I don't want to choose favorites. But just out of a little fun thought experiment, let's see here. There are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 past guests are live right now. I'm not going to choose between them, but I'm going to shout them all out. I can't give them all an actual Twitch shout out. It won't let me do that many, but I will give that vocal shout out and big love to, just in the auto sorted order, Olivia Monroe, Grimmy, Hina Bobina, Giga, who is streaming on her alt account, not Giga, very aptly named, Ashton Martin, Amedal, Toma, Koki, Radioactive, Phoebe, Henamimi, Digital Vagrant, Kitsune Eve, Tane Tenchi, Amayami, Sisihime, Hiragi Yu, Briet Cookie Box, Desync, Magical Momoka, and Pachi. And there, if you were counting, that does not add up to the same number. There's one missing. There is one past guest who now streams under a different name. They aren't particularly secretive about it, but for the sake of kayfabe, I'm not going to name it on air, but I will say that there are several past guests of mine who do not stream any longer under the name and model with which they appeared on my show, but I still consider them past guests. I send out invites to all my past guests for every charity marathon, and that even if they exist under new names, I still send them to those people, and obviously, based on their wishes and their comfort, I may or may not acknowledge the conversations we had under their previous name. But that, for me, a change in name and branding, whether it be because they have joined or left an agency or simply rebranded, a past guest to me is the person behind the model, not the name or the appearance of the model. Some past guests are more comfortable than others with the outward acknowledgement of such things, and that I always cue off of that. But there are a number of past guests that don't stream under those names, but you can still find them and hear them if you know where to listen and look. So you may have those little treasure hunts for yourself. But they are all fantastic, and I am not going to rate any of them. So who am I going to rate? That's a very good question. Actually, I'm going to take Coward's Way out. Yes! Haha! Vanille, since you were the one that suggested this, I'm going to let you choose who to rate, as long as it is not a past guest. Anybody else will do. Hehehe. Yes, this is, like, I don't pass the buck on many things. This is one of those where I will take the coward's way out and pass the buck. Mwahahaha. The ultimate evil of letting someone else choose who to raid because I don't know who to choose. But actually, I'm going to give Neil a shout out for her contributions for the stream. Gravity Wolf, cool. I don't even know if I follow them. That's half the appeal of this for me. That, like I said, it gives me new folks to seek out because goodness knows I am spoiled for choice. There are far more VTubers than I could ever hope to talk to. So, yay. And admittedly, I've not had as many shows this year as I've had in past years, and a lot of that has been, I'm not going to necessarily say my own fault, but it's been the circumstance of what it is, and I'm hoping to ramp things back up next year. But even so, I always am very methodical in my invites, that I never send out invitations to folks without first being in a couple streams, and, you know, sometimes I invite folks and don't hear back, or they decline, as is very much their right. So that means that sometimes, you know, I need a bit more time to find folks, because I never want to just follow folks because, hey, I liked your model, or, oh, hey, I saw you had a lot of followers. I want to follow some, or I want to invite someone because I have at least baseline familiarity with their content, have seen several streams, know their general vibe, and am able to then make sure that my show is as tailored to them as possible. So I'm gonna learn about Gravity Wolf tonight. Do I already follow them? Because I do admittedly forget a lot of names sometime. There's a lot of Gravity Wolves on Twitter. Making sure I'm finding the right one here. Steph Gravity. I see their handle is Gravity Wolf, Vanille. Seem to be an artist. Gintama Nerd. Neat. Yes, again, thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in for any amount of time. That I very much appreciate people taking time to tune into any of my streams, and even more so when it is just me, because I recognize I do not have much of a community of my own, if any, and this is my own design and fault very much of I don't have a Discord server, I don't do solo streams outside of these, and part of that is because laziness. I will be entirely honest, part of it is laziness, and part of it is also just for the way I like to operate as a host, that I like to be something of a blank slate to be able to adapt to the guests. And I know that that is terrible from a channel growth perspective, but I am fine with that. This channel is unmonetized, and while I will never say never, I will say that I do not foresee monetizing my channel in the foreseeable future. I like things how it is, and that even if things have been a little bit slow because life has been life, do not worry, VTuber Talk is not going anywhere. 5 years in, I'm very much enjoying it, and things I would say are progressing as designed. Honestly, better than designed and planned in many, many ways. So, again, thank you all for your support, and be sure to definitely support all my past guests, and I hope that you will all take time and join me again, not only for future shows, but for the 5th anniversary charity marathon this January. Is going to be very, very special. Obviously, every anniversary is in raising money for Child's Play charity. We have raised just under $29,000 over the first 4 years, which is mind-boggling to me. Like, every time I get to tell someone that number, like, my heart just swells. I'm just like, and I do not say that I raise that money. I say that we raise that money, because it is the combination of efforts of all of my past guests and their communities coming together, and I just so happen to be the one coordinating the event, but it is by no means just me. And for the 5th anniversary, not because it is the 5th, but because we raised $10,000, that big number up there that you see, $10,250, the gag goal, the one that was never supposed to happen, but that I kept to because I wasn't gonna cower my way out of it. I am going to, after 5 years, tell my parents about this channel, because they do not know. This has been my personal happy secret that I have kept from many, many people. At this point, I would say more past guests that I have had the good fortune to cross paths with in person know about VTuber Talk and have met me than people in my quote-unquote IRL life that know about VTuber Talk. I have kept it a very closely guarded secret, and it's been perhaps disturbingly easy to keep, because people in my normal life just know I'm busy with stuff. I do lots of things. So if I ever need to explain away why I'm busy, I just say I'm busy. They never ask why. They never bother to ask, hey, Jay, what are you doing on that night? And it's just like, oh, yeah, Jay's busy. Yeah, he does stuff. Okay. It's kind of amazing. But anyways, that's enough of me doing the little extra monologuing. Again, thank you all so much. We're going to go raid Gravity Wolf, so be sure to let them know that Neil and I sent y'all. So thank you all once again. Oh, and Dangerous Jalen, I missed that follow. So thank you very much for the follow. And thanks again to CaptCrabs for the raid. Have a great evening, everyone, and I will see you all next time.